We're back, and we're coming out guns a-blazing on the Dattitude podcast in a debate about whether the Saints are once again kicking the can or doing what they have to do to make sure they're competitive for a rookie head coach. Although we will mention the words football purgatory this morning, Mike Detillier is here. Gabe Henderson can't wait to debate. Is your favorite team banished to football purgatory? Or did somehow I get stuck out here riding my unicorn on the magic carpet? How the hell do you get off this thing anyway? Maybe I can find out while I run the new open. It's a long way down, boys and girls.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, Dattitude family? And welcome back. We're refreshed, ready to feed all the birds chirping in the peanut gallery, ready to duke it up with Gabe later on this afternoon. Who knows what's going to happen? We're going to have some fun. Today is going to be fun. We're back. But first, this is the season 5 premiere of Dattitude, episode number 350, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Monday, March the 17th, 2025, me laddies. St. Patrick's Day. I'm your host with a really bad Irish accent, Jim Derry, 34 and a half years in the New Orleans sports media scene. And as always, more than ever before, maybe, I thank you for being a part of this ever-growing Dattitude family. How did you miss us? I know you did. I got to refresh the batteries, recharge the batteries, get myself going. I was going to work a lot last week. I figured, by last week I'd be ready. I did work a little bit, but not nearly as much as I wanted to. So anyway, we're ready to go. I tried to wear a green shirt today with my Buc-ee's St. Patrick's Day shirt. Apparently the technology in my home studio isn't nearly as good with the blue screen as it is with the green screen. So here I am wearing my Cubs World Series shirt. It is Cubs opening day tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. Central Time, live from Tokyo as they take on the Dodgers the next 2 days. Major League Baseball is upon us. Got my drafts next week. Not that you care about that, but so much to tell you about before we even get to the Saints. Who needs money? Mike Detillier coming on this morning. Who better have? He started off. He was our guest for the season 4 premiere last year on March the 1st. So I asked him if he would do it again. So maybe it'll be an annual recurrence. Mike Detillier is going to come on, and I know where he stands on the whole kick in the can debate. I was on his show while I was on vacation. I did Eric's show last Monday. We'll do it today. I've been trying to stay busy. There was so much going on. Before I tell you, give you a little update, personal update. First, we will tell you that you can be a part of the show by typing in your comment on YouTube. So many people have done so already, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And if you haven't already done so, if you're watching on Facebook, please subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. You can get in touch with me, as always, on X at Jim Derry Jr. via email at jderry@theadvocate.com. Before I even give you any updates on what happened my nearly 3 weeks off, just to let you know, we're trying to do, I know I've said this before, but we really are now. We've subscribed to this shorts service. So we're going to start doing more with our shorts beginning today. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to try. I'm not promising that I'm going to be able to do this every day, but I'm really going to try every morning when we don't have a show, at least, to do like a morning update and kind of like what was the news of the day from the day before, or if something big's going to happen on that day. Like tomorrow morning, I'm going to try to do one. We'll see how it goes. YouTube does shorts. They call them TikToks on TikTok. We'll put them on Instagram as well. So getting our shorts back together, trying to get that all done as we approach the warmer months. Do shorts, right? you'd be surprised how much trouble you can get into when you have 19 days off. So over the course of the past 19 days, Roden and Demian, you know, all knew that. That was great ride as always. The extravaganza was good. I stayed longer than I usually stayed. I'm not a huge Katy Perry fan. And after Katy Perry, I know some people, younger people, will think this is blasphemous, but even my kids, my 27-year-old son and daughter-in-law, they thought Train was better than Katy Perry. Train played after Katy Perry, and they were phenomenal. Second time they played the extravaganza, loved them. We spent a few days in Alabama with the family. Went to a place called, I don't know if you've ever heard of Owa. It's a little, it's not that little. It's actually fairly big. It's a amusement park and an indoor water park. And it was amazing because there was nobody there. And when I say nobody there, like, except for the water park itself, there was nobody there. If you've ever been to an amusement park and had the place to yourself, basically, it was very weird, very odd. They have downtown where you can go in these different places, and there's one place you pay $5 and you get 5 different kinds of shots. They make their own moonshine. There's about 40 different types of moonshine, and you pick which 5 you want for $5. That was phenomenal. Another place with about 50 different beers on tap, and you can pay a certain price and pour your own. It was phenomenal. So anyway, we enjoyed that. The best of all, bought a new truck. Got a new truck. Finally been looking at this Tundra. My brother-in-law, I give a free plug to Supreme Toyota of Hammond. My brother-in-law is the general manager there, Kyle Goday. Always hooks me up. I've had my car for about 6 years now. I've been itching. I've been looking. And I said, you know what? Financially, it's not going to be any different. Well, I hope not anyway. It's not going to be any different last year, this year, next year. If I'm going to do it, I might as well do it now. So I did it. So there you go. Bought myself a new truck. And also, I cheated on my diet. If you were looking for the update on how the New Year's resolution is going, I didn't cheat too bad. It wasn't like I was just eating whatever I wanted. But yesterday, last thing before we get to the ad here, and then tell you again what's coming on the show this afternoon, a little thing called the Chef Soiree in St. Tammany Parish here yesterday, where there are about 60 restaurants and businesses, maybe more than 60. And my wife's been going, she's in the restaurant business, you know this, the restaurant sales business. She's been going for years. Finally took me, and with some of our really close friends. It was phenomenal. We had free tickets, so it was even better. But they have all these different restaurants, and they basically give you these little samples of things that they make there, and also whatever you want to drink. I'm joining the gym today. Let's just say that. I really am. I'm joining the gym today. I got a deal at a local gym that just opened, and I'm going back to the gym. Got to get back on it. It wasn't too bad, but I didn't have the heart to step on the scale this morning. We'll see. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. We'll see what happens. All right, before we get to the rest of the show, Mike Detillier is coming on at 11:25 this morning. I want to talk to you. Obviously, want to show some of your comments. I have lots of things to talk about besides Saints this morning, give you some updates on some local goings on. But I will have a monologue on the Saints. All this before 11:25 when Mike comes on. Let me tell you about our friends at Evangeline Securities. Of course, they are a company that can help you decide if it's the right time to sell your family-run or privately held business. And just as importantly, they can figure out what that business is worth. If that is you or someone you know, it's time to reach out to Evangeline's founding and managing partners, Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt. And guess what? They won't extend any dead cap money into your retirement years. I promise. Rather, Nick and Ron will start by scheduling a complimentary valuation from their offices, either on Poydras Street or in Lafayette. From there, you will be well informed to begin to make the decision on if you want to proceed. We'll tell you what happens after that, as we'll fill you in later in the show after we talk to Mike. In the meantime, you can check them out at www.evangelinesecurities.com. Okay, we've got plenty of comments in the queue. What we got going on this morning? Brian, welcome back. Potter, welcome back. You love the can, the symbolism of the rusty can. If you didn't say it, there it is. Kick this. You know what's funny is I think you probably know I'm going to be on the other side, right? Gabe says, by the way, Train is better than a modern day Katy Perry. Prime Katy Perry was much better though. You know what? I can't even argue with that. And I'm not going to argue with that. She was weird, man. Katy Perry was. If I have time later on, remind me later in the show after Mike and Gabe, before we go off the air, and I'll tell you a little story about something she said that was way out there. She got presented with a giant plaque, and they made March 1st or whatever. Katy Perry, I got to tell you about it. I'll tell you later. We got too much to do this morning. Rocky, good morning. Welcome back. Dattitude Nation. Apathy. Don't think the Saints got any better with these moves. What the moves tell you is Loomis and Moore think it was all injuries, and they think a new staff can squeeze more out of what they have already. You know what? I don't argue a lot of that. I don't know that the Saints didn't get better. But I agree with you that they think that they can squeeze more out with a new coaching staff. I just don't think, and we'll get into this, I just don't think you can put a price, per se, on how screwed up things were under Dennis Allen. I just don't think you'd put a relative value on that. We'll get into that with Mike later. Lots of comments in the queue. Got to get going. Jasper, good morning. Charles Mangus, good morning. Happy St. Patty's Day. Hip replacement surgery was a success. Now on a cane trying to walk. Well, good thing you don't need to walk to watch the Dattitude podcast. Welcome back, Charles. Let's see. Brian already commented. I'll show it anyway. Loomis still in win now mode, but the NFC South could be 9-8. Winning is winning. Gotta win. Gotta win. Mark Gapsky, good morning. Hope my vacation was good. It was great. It was phenomenal. UBN's here. At least could have dyed my hair green or something. You know what's funny? And part of the reason why I didn't leave the blue screen on, and I told you before, so I had on my Buc-ee's green St. Patty's Day shirt, okay? And when I turned the green screen around and put the blue screen up, the problem was the green shirt was fine, but it was turning my hair kind of greenish, and I didn't think I wanted to do that for today. If it was just me and it was a Mono-y Monday, and I know it's supposed to be Mono-y Monday. I know a lot of y'all are used to that with just me and you talking on Monday, but we got to have Mike on for the season premiere. So anyway, that's why my hair actually was green, and it just looked silly. Not that I mind looking silly. UBN's favorite team had a garage sale. Everything must go for the San Francisco 49ers. Scott says, good morning. Happy to see the podcast return. Hope I enjoyed my vacation. I did, and I'm ready to roll. We're going to be talking a lot about draft stuff when we get past this free agency. Christian, hope I had a great time off. Best wishes to family and wife. Thank you so much. Brian Pearson. The New Orleans Saints are having a press conference on their channel on YouTube in a couple minutes. Well, you can watch it on demand. You got to watch Dattitude first. I'm not sure what they're going to announce. I mean, I don't think they're going to announce anything important. Are they? They do have about, I think it's like 19 million left in cap space. I don't think it's going to matter anymore. Saint for Life, good morning. He says, no more kicking the can. It absolutely sucks. Okay. Dylan Smith, we're going to talk about LSU baseball. Probably not softball, but the softball team, I think, is ranked 4th. LSU baseball number 1. Let's go. Yeah. Gabe and I are going to talk about this a little later. I'm making in this with Mike. Jawan Johnson deals another head-scratching decision by Loomis. We'll get into why. Mark says Dodgers only minus 150 tomorrow. Sounds fishy. That's about right. The Cubs are the favorite in the NL Central. It's not that. I mean, when you talk about baseball, as far as numbers go, that's a pretty big margin in baseball. I mean, you're talking about ace versus ace. I don't think that sounds fishy. That's about right. Christian says Greenbow, Alabama got a box of chocolate. The Saints are like a box of chocolates. Okay. Charles Schulman. How's it going? It's going great. Had 19 days off, and I'm actually, it's not often you're fired up about coming. I'm ready. Now, usually it's like, I can use it. No, I'm ready to come back to work. I really am. I'm fired up about coming back to work. I almost did a show while I was off, and you know what? Let's just save it. Save it for Mike. Sean says that I believe we can't judge these moves until after the draft. They need to hit on their top 4 picks. Well, might go beyond that because they have 5 picks in the top 112. They have 2 4th rounders. I think that's what it is. How many of those do they need to hit on? We'll talk about that with Mike in a little. Again, 11:25. He is coming on. Brian says he likes most of the moves, even a few of the cans. Look. Jason says 19 days off. Dude, in this business, when you work 6 and 7 days a week from August to January, you take off when you can. I get X amount of days off, and if you think I ain't taking them, you're cray, especially at my age. If you got whatever the X amount of days are off, you take them when you can. And I always take some during Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras just happened to be later this year with the Super Bowl. What I probably normally would have done is taken a week right after the season was over, and then maybe another week during Mardi Gras and a couple days. Nah, didn't work out that way this year. All right, couple things I want to talk about, and I will say with the Saints. Look, again, we're gonna have the show is gonna be 85% Saints today. Again, Mike Detillier on 11:25. Gabe Henderson after that. Their view is going to be the Saints are kicking the can down the road, and the Saints are in football purgatory. My view is different. Okay. I said this before I left. I've said this for weeks and weeks and weeks. I've said it since before the season was over. The only way to be competitive next year is to basically do what the Saints have been doing. And I think for where they were. Now, look, I'm not giving him a pass because Mickey Loomis got him in this mess. Excuse me as I take a sip of coffee here. Mickey Loomis got him in this mess. But that being said, where they are, I think that they've done a phenomenal, and I am going to use the word phenomenal. I think they've done a phenomenal job to be able to get to this point. Now, I'm going to show this real quick. Excuse me. As we put this chart together this morning. Now, that's a lot of moves. That's a lot of stuff to do. This is what's been done basically since I left for vacation. All these things have been done in the past 19 days. And if you talk about the signings that they've made, are any of them special? Well, besides Justin Reed, no. Trading for Devon Gotcho is a big deal. But you look at some of the moves, and we can debate Juwan Johnson and Chase Young and whatever. But this team is trying to be competitive for now. If you're going to be competitive for now, these are the sorts of things you need to do. Again, I'll show this chart again when Mike comes on. All these players I'm going to talk about. Paulson Adebo, I know a lot of you would have maybe rather work that deal out. I understand. Will Harris, will he be missed? Maybe. Peyton Turner won't be missed. Jamal Williams won't be missed. And, of course, we're going to spend a lot of time this morning talking about Derek Carr. I told you, you can, look, talk about all these other podcasts, okay, and all these other shows and whatever. And I'm not, look, some of these guys just say whatever they think their fans want to hear, okay, or their listeners want to hear, whatever you want to call them. That's what they say. I've been telling you for months, telling you before the season, when y'all all saying Derek Carr got hurt and he sucked and he was great the first 2 games and everybody was off his ass for about a month. And in October, they started getting on his ass. I'm like, you better get used to it because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. I've told you. And I'm not trying to be like the weather people and say, oh, I was right, as I told you yesterday. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to make you be realistic because I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear in a minute anyway. Derek Carr is not going anywhere. Probably not in 2026 either. All the pundits, all the people trying to hype you up because they wanted Derek Carr going, including some of our own people. He was never going anywhere. I was saying 90% chance. I really thought it was like 95% chance he was coming back. But I started listening to some of my colleagues, and they were saying 40 and 50%. And I started maybe backing down a little bit, and I backed down to 90%. Realistically, there was nothing else this team could have done. There was nothing else they were going to do. Just saying. PBM says he agrees with me. UBN says I've hit the over on the word phenomenal. I think I've only used it twice. I don't know. Apathy says the best move the Saints have done this far was not give Cooper Kupp $15 million a year. I don't know if I agree with that or not. Maybe. I don't hate either way. I would have been happy with it. Let's see. Phil says, good morning from Texas. Good morning. I'm a little verklempt this morning. I don't know what's going on. Saint for life. Will Clapp is a subpar offensive line. He's not a starter, dude. He's not a starter. They didn't sign him to be a starter. He played with Kellen Moore, for Kellen Moore. He's played here. He's a local dude. And they signed him for what? $1 million? Probably 1.3 million. They didn't have a number on him. I'm sure he's getting the minimum. Come on. I don't know. Jason, that dude sounds like a goofball. I know who you're talking about. Can't listen more than a few seconds. He just gets on my nerves. You mean me? If I get on your nerves, why would you come back? I mean, Jason? Or who? Who are you talking about, Jason? I'm glad you came back, though. We miss you. CC Broom likes my attitude. My tendency is to only be overly critical of the Saints as a field a competitive team. Nobody can reasonably expect excellence at this point. Horse hockey. You should always expect excellence. John Carter. Who dat from DC? Who dat? Gabe, I'm going to bring you on for 1 second. I hope you're ready. I need a little water. I need you to talk for a second.
I'm always ready. Well, I guess the one thing, since you put me on now, I can finally address the people in the comments saying Hunter Renfrow should be signed. Hunter Renfrow hasn't played football
right
in 2 seasons. I'm pretty sure he's now an insurance agent. And they're saying that he looked good, or he looked great. The word was great with Derek Carr.
Right.
Hunter Renfrow eclipsed 700 yards once in his 5-year career. So I don't know what great is.
Great. He's great, man. He's great.
He might be great. I'm going to look at his LinkedIn real quick.
Is he even still playing?
No, he hasn't played since 2023.
Oh, Jason says the loudmouth pod show guy.
I saw something the other day that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he's working. He's in business development at ESS Industrial in the South Carolina area in Greenville.
Is that like E.F. Hutton? You don't even know. You don't know what E.F. Hutton is. Oh my God, I'm old. And look, Mike's in the green room, so we're going to bring him on in just a second. But just to show how old I am, and I know you don't. Mike's listening, so Mike can hear me say this. So last night, my wife's baking a cake or whatever, and blah blah blah. She left it out, and long story short, I said, "Don't worry, someone left the cake out in the rain," and she says, "What?" I said, "Someone left the cake out in the rain. You don't know what I'm talking about?" She had the song MacArthur Park. Do you know it, Gabe? No, you don't. God, I'm so old. Your mic went off. I'm so old. We will. I'm gonna bring you. I'm gonna bring you back. I can't wait. Yeah, there we go. I can't wait to debate. We'll debate in a little bit.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. It's time to bring on Mike. I want to ask Mike Detillier. Is it? Mike, am I just getting old? I mean, someone left the cake out in the rain. I mean, come on.
You're getting old, but so am I.
My wife's 10 years younger than me, and she doesn't even know what it does. And I played it for it. Never heard that song before in my life. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Donna Summer, okay, in the 70s, early 80s. You don't remember a lot of disco records, okay? Saturday Night Fever,
right?
You know, Bee Gees, everything else. Donna Summer was the star of that disco era, and that MacArthur Park always in mind. Always in mind when I think of Donna Summer.
It just hurts my heart that I'm that old. That my again 10 years old. 10 years younger than me, and she doesn't know what someone left. She had no idea what I was talking about. All right, let's talk about what is most important to people watching this show. Mike Detillier, WWL Radio here on the Dattitude podcast, the season 5 premiere. There's a lot that's happened since we last spoke, Mike. Now, we did talk about Derek Carr, but I don't think it should be a big surprise to anyone. I know that you're not really in favor of the move, but I mean, people should have seen it coming that really, unless you just want to eat $50 million, this was really the only move you could make.
Yeah, I could see that Category 4 hurricane coming. So knew it. I'm not, for a couple reasons. One, I think this football team has to get itself financially fit. And somewhere along the line, you got to swallow that money. Secondly, I'm in a big belief. I told you this earlier before the season ended. I believe it today even more. He does not want to be here. Does not want to be here. His actions tell you everything about how he feels. Have you heard a peep from him?
Nope.
Since the end of the season?
Have not.
It tells you everything you need to know about how he feels. Now, you had to know that if you're in that room, that he really didn't want to be here. But there is no easy way out, Jim. And we've talked about this for over a year. There's no easy way out of this, one way or another. But if you were going to, I guess, try to piece things together, the only way you could have done it would have been somebody to really help you in a trade. And I didn't see that happening. Their deal is you cut him loose and I'll deal with him after June 1st, if that's what you want to do.
You know what changes that, Mike? Winning. If you win, everybody wants to be here. And so, I mean, for Derek Carr, I honestly believe, again, I don't know Derek Carr. It's not like I have his cell phone with texting back and forth, but he is probably tired of people just, I mean, even the media, it's the media, the Everyday Joe podcast. Everyone is, the fans, the media, everyone is bashing. No one has anything good to say about Derek Carr. And I don't blame him for wanting to be out of here, but I agree with you. But again, because people got off of his ass for a whole month back in September when they won 2 games in a row, then almost beat Philadelphia, should have beat Atlanta, whatever, should have, would have, could have, and then things turned sour, and they hated him again. After Dennis Allen was gone, they didn't have anybody else to kick except Derek Carr. So if the Saints can find a way to win, and I know you probably don't believe they can because they're in football purgatory, but if they can find a way to win, everything changes.
Yeah, but the tough part is to find a way to win because I still think that this team is not close. Because, you would have to define close to me to being a contender. Even in the NFC South, I think the Bucs and the Falcons are better teams today. Now, you may get a little bit better via the draft and help yourself. I think what you got to be careful of is the 4th team. Because down the stretch, Jim, you got to admit, the Panthers were impressive. Hey, they got in the ring with everybody. They didn't post a bunch of wins, but, man, they got in the ring and they swung it out toe-to-toe. And so some of the moves, I like what I've seen with the Saints do. It is not, as in years past, you investing a ton of money long-term in an older player.
Right.
I never was for that. You're not close enough to do that. If you're going to take a chance, you have to do it with younger players. And for every Drew Brees that's out there in free agency, you think about who's in the 2 spot for this football team, free agency-wise, you would say DeMario Davis. Name me the 3 guy.
Oh, man. Matthew?
Maybe Jabari Greer?
I don't know if I can answer that. I mean, that's a tough question to answer.
And so it shows you You got to win through the draft. It is the building process that you have to go through. Now, when I was doing the draft book and I would say that on different shows, everybody would say, you saying it because you involved and you financially involved with the draft. I am, but I also said it because I believed it.
Right.
Okay, you're not going to build a team just through free agency. That's not going to happen. You can add a bit and a chip, but if you look at how Eagles, Chiefs got to Super Bowl Sunday, they got a bit in the chip in free agency. They built through the draft. And that's how this team is going to have to be able to come back. And all this stuff about this, we got this really good young core of players. My thing is, where do you have them? I haven't seen them. Tell me where. And if you are the Chiefs or the Eagles and you say, you know what, I'll trade the Saints one-on-one for any player that I know could start on this team tomorrow. Start. Eric McCoy.
You think that's the Alvin Kamara?
Okay, could he start over Saquon Barkley?
Not over Saquon Barkley, but if you trade him to the Chiefs, he could start right away.
The Chiefs, he could. But the Eagles, Saquon's got that. Maybe DeMario Davis, maybe. But that's a maybe.
Now Justin Reed, maybe.
Yeah, because Justin did start with Kansas City. But if you're talking about guys 27 years of age and younger, that's
you got a point.
Core young players.
I never thought about it like that, but you definitely have a point.
You got one. Eric McCoy.
Well, that leads me into there's definitely some other things I want to talk about as far as other moves they made. I'm going to show a chart in a minute. But you want to talk about the draft, that's definitely on my list of things to talk about. I think with all the free agent moves and the re-signings and the restructures and whatever, I think and I thought this before they made these moves, but I think now, Mike, that they've made the moves they made, they've shown a clear path that they need to go offensive line in the first round of this draft now, or trade down. We can talk about that. That's a possibility. And I know y'all have talked about the possibility of tight end, but I think everything they've done, and I think knowing how Kellen Moore operates and knowing how the Philadelphia Eagles was successful last year and how the Cowboys was successful when he was there, it all starts in the O-line. I think that's where they got to go first.
Yeah. The one guy that I gave a lot of talk to, and, when Charlie and I were doing this, and he was like, might come up with the first round. I didn't even put the first guy on the board yet. And I wrote in Saints, Jalen Walker, because just thinking, Brandon Staley, 3-4 defense, he needs a joker player, a guy he can move around. Not knowing at that point they would re-sign Chase Young, my thought is, can I get an edge? Can I get a guy that I can move around a little bit in that defense and have him coming off the left to the right and become that 3-4 outside linebacker? So I put Jalen Walker. That was all great, Jim, till I got to 8. Carolina. So I had to erase that, babe, right off the bat. Walker goes to Carolina. And my thing is, when you pick in a top 10 pick, I would preferably want to go with a big man. Yeah. I think that's the way to go. But at that point, Tyler Warren was still there. And
I know Charlie loves Tyler Warren. I know we were talking on your show about that and the potential of the Saints. But is he a game changer, Mike? Is he a game-changing player? That obviously the Saints have needs there. They just signed Jawan Johnson, the 3-year deal. We'll get into that, whether it's a good move or not. But the Saints, that is a need. But is that, with the 9th pick of the draft, is that something that Saints say, okay, we're going to do this?
Okay, I'm not trying to compare him to Brock Bowers. But if you had the 9th pick in the draft last year, wouldn't you pick Brock?
There's no question. Zero question.
Hey, gun deal. But it was really quarterback dominated. And I get why some teams did what they did. Had I had a chance to pick Joe Alt, hey, he's coming to me. I'm not giving him to anybody else. But there is no Joe Alt in this draft class. This, to me, is more of a starter class than it is a star class of first rounders. And so my first thought is it comes down to two guys that were there when I made the pick. Tyler Warren, Will Campbell from LSU.
Yeah.
Came down to those two for me. And so if they pick Will, I got no squawk about that at all. Because I know that I could put him on the left side at tackle, and he's going to play there 10 years and be a really good player. And I can then move Fuaga back to his more natural position at right.
Correct, which is what I hope they do.
What I don't know is the thinking behind the scenes on how Brandon Staley, Kellen Moore, any of the guys think about the personnel, because we haven't seen any of that yet.
Right.
And so it's just a guess. I agree with you, big man, at that spot, and it won't turn out the way I have it the first 8. But if you had a chance to pick a really good offensive lineman, I could certainly see him go that area. You know, a lot of people have brought up about Genty. I think he goes ahead of the Saints too.
You do? You think Genty is going to go ahead of the Saints?
Man, I do know one thing about Pete Carroll. He has built every team he has ever
There's no doubt about that.
A running back. And it don't matter to him where he picks it.
That's true.
And I remember when he got the job in Seattle, and talking to Coach Orgeron, he was like, hey, I'll bet you a lot of money he gets a big back. That's how he wants to do it. Sure enough, Marshawn Lynch.
Yep. And then later, Kenneth Walker.
Yep. And so you can see that's part of his MO on that football team. I don't think it changes how other people look at the draft. Other people are putting 3 running backs in round 1. I don't see that. You might have a second. I can't see a third.
It's been a while since we had 3 running backs go in the first round.
It's been a while. Now, we've had it twice in the last 6 years, 2 running backs selected. But the 3, it's been a long time. So, and I look at this draft class, it is really got talent and talent depth at the running back position. So if I want a back, I think I could grab one with a 3rd round pick and he'll end up being a pretty doggone good player. I agree with you. The Greeks settled this years ago. You got a chance to pick a really talented big man, really talented smaller guy, you go with the big man.
Look, I just think, Mike, you talk about Will Campbell, and look, I think you and I both agree. We talked about it. His stock maybe even dropped a little bit this past year. He didn't play maybe as well as I think a lot of people would have hoped. But then again, if he would have played as well as we hoped or thought he would, maybe he's a top 3 or top 4 pick, and the Saints don't even have a chance to draft him. But if the Saints were to get a chance to draft Will Campbell, and like you say, move Fuaga back to his native right tackle, which I think in a perfect world is what you do with him, and you take Penning and you give him an opportunity, because I've said this before. I've been saying it for months. I actually think my opinion on Penning has gone up dramatically over the past 6 months. And while I still don't think he played great at right tackle, he played better than I thought he would. I think he can play a guard. The way he was a run blocker, I thought he did a really nice job actually in run blocking. I'd love to see him be able to potentially play left guard. And to me, if you can get a Will Campbell, it solves 2 problems. You solve 2 problems with 1 stone, with 1 pick. And I just think it does a tremendous. It gives the Saints a big leg up. And then you got Ruiz, you got Eric McCoy, and obviously you still don't have depth at O-line. But if you're able to draft Will Campbell and move Penning to left guard and it works out, man, you can really have something there.
Okay, if you had to start a game tomorrow, who are you starting at left guard?
I mean, right now, who are you going to? Lucas Patrick? I guess I don't know the answer to that right now. I mean, Will Clapp is a possibility, but you're really signing Will Clapp to be a backup,
correct,
where he is right now. So right now, you don't really have a choice. That's what I'm saying. If you don't go out and get a tackle, then I want to be able to see Penning be able to have a chance to move the guard. Again, we don't know what Kellen Moore is thinking. We don't know what the offensive staff is thinking. I'm just thinking that, to me, that makes the most sense, and I would like to see that happen.
The other thing, too, is what if you went Armand Mimbo from Missouri, who's been always a right tackle?
Yeah. Then you leave Fuaga at left tackle.
And you keep Fuaga at left. So you're doing it a little bit different, but you're still solving the tackle situation there. And I think, for me, it's very close between Campbell and Mimbo. And I think on some people's boards, they have Mimbo ahead of Will. Man, Armand Mimbo, if you watch Missouri, he just sort of stoned everybody he went up against. Is he prototypical size? Not really.
No.
He's 6'3". He's a little over 300 pounds, but great athlete, a really good technician, does a fantastic job in the pass protection part of the game. And everybody I've spoke to that has had any interaction with him tells you the exact same thing, that, man, he's a football player. He loves the game. He's physical, but yet he's such a good athlete. And you could say the same thing about Will Campbell. They're both similar in that maybe they're not the prototypical left and right tackles, but, man, they get the job done. Everybody say, oh, well, I saw that Florida guy beat him. Oh, I saw this. Okay. How many tackles in this league, don't get beat?
Right.
Everybody gets beat. It's like a cornerback. Derek Stingley Jr., God bless him, he got paid today. I saw him get beat a few times this year in a game.
I think Gabe Henderson's happy. Is he happy?
He's not going to be perfect with it. And I think about that LSU 2019 team, and I'll just throw this out. They became today the first billion-dollar team ever in pro football. When you look at the contracts initially, and now the contracts with Burrow, with Jamar, with Justin Jefferson, with Stingley, with Lloyd Cushenberry, with Patrick Queen, with Damian Lewis, all of a sudden, that team that was pieced together, won the national championship, becomes the first billion-dollar team in the history of college football.
And if you still don't think that was the greatest college football team that ever played, you probably should be watching another sport. I'm just saying, I know I'm biased, but I'm just saying that was the greatest team that's ever played, greatest group of players, at least, that I've ever seen. And I don't think we'll ever see that again. But I mean, I told my wife last night, I said, because she went to Chappelle, I said, Rumble Boy got paid. Jamar Chase got paid. And I told her the money. I said, what do you even do with $160 million, Mike? I mean, I wouldn't have it.
Well, let me just tell you, once Uncle Sam gets finished with you,
that's true.
That $60 million is more like $85 million. And so it's still a lot of money in today's world, a tremendous amount of money. But, it sort of changes. You hope it doesn't change your outlook on how you look at the game.
Yeah.
And I've seen guys that didn't have anything. They get paid, and that deal is, man, I didn't have nothing before. Yeah, I play like I don't have nothing now. And yet we have also seen the flip. Some people get paid, and, man, bed becomes comfortable in the morning. I don't feel like getting up to go work.
Right.
Man, what? Man, it's warm in bed. I don't want to get out of here. And so I think these guys, if it's Jamar, if it's Joe, if it's Stingley, if it's Justin Jefferson, it ain't going to change their focus. Right. Not going to change them. It might change others, but those four pretty well. It ain't gonna change them.
Yeah, you know all those guys. But see, for me, and coming from covering prep football, which is what I, before I took this gig on and before I came over to the dark side in 2019 and moved back over here, I covered high school football, and Jamar Chase, just thinking of him as a kid and meeting him as this sophomore that was playing in a 7-on-7 tournament at Lakeshore, and actually spending time. I talked to he and Christian Fulton at the same time. Remember having a conversation with being introduced to him by Ted Lewis and just having this conversation with these very well-mannered, yes, sir, no, sir kids. And to think that one day one of them was going to be making $160 million over 4 years, you never could have guessed that. And it just kind of warms my heart, I guess, because again, these are talking about kids that were very well mannered. They worked their way up to get where they are, and I think they've earned. I don't know if anybody's earned $160 million, but if you're going to pay that in this time, I'm glad to see a kid like Jamar Chase get there.
Yeah, Jim. The other thing too is we living in a different world than
absolutely
parents and grandparents, in that when you look at the amount of money that's getting paid, people say, well, they all getting overpaid. My thing is, look what the owners are doing.
Exactly.
They are getting this money,
billions,
freight training to them from every service they can get. If it's Fox, if it's CBS, if it's NBC, if it's Peacock, if it's Amazon, you name it, they getting it at a total that's unfathomable today. This is why so many people with money that is just upper level would like to be in the NFL. Because when you have that kind of money, Jim, my thing is, man, I don't want to eat this out. I want to get my money back fast. If you own an NFL team, I don't care what you paying for it, you getting your money back fast. You
just need to figure out how to spend it and not waste it all, because I know a lot of these kids do waste it and they need financial advice. They don't. Look, I want to get back to the Saints Dattitude podcast, season 5 premiere on this Monday morning here with Mike Detillier, presented by Evangeline Securities. And Mike, I asked a question, our title slide this morning, and I'm going to get to all the moves that the Saints have made. In fact, I'm going to show it right now. And just the moves they made so far. We see the signings, only one big signing, really, Justin Reed. But I think it's a very good signing for this team. Some people say, why are they spending that money? I think it's important. Traded for Devon Gotcho, re-signing Juwan Johnson, all the rework contracts we've talked about. Derek Carr, we've talked about it a little bit. We'll probably talk about it again. I thought it was a little weird they signed, reworked both their defensive tackles, especially after you trade for Gotcho. But answer the question, Mike, are they just kicking the can, or does this team have legitimate hope for the near future? I think I know what your answer is.
I think what they're trying to do is win now. There is no doubt in my mind that they believe that they think they're close, and that with a few moves and you stay healthy, you can be a playoff team. Now, I'm not of that thought process, but I think that's what they believe, and that's why they go out and make the deal for Godshaw, give a long-term deal to Chase Young, because I think in today's world, when you give up that much money, even for 3 years, that's a nice commitment today. The big change today, Jim, that I see then from other years is that agents tell me we want a shorter deal. We would much rather take the 3-year deal than the 5, because then we can get right back on the market, because we all know one thing is happening very soon, a new collective bargaining agreement where the money is going to again flow back freely, and it is already, but even more so than before, because of what's coming in from so many different circles. So I think they believe that they're in the hunt for the NFC South. I don't think they're certainly as good at the quarterback position as Tampa, as Atlanta, or even Carolina at this stage, to be honest.
Come on, Mike. I love you to death, and I said this on many a show. You disagree with Mike Detillier at your own peril. Okay, so I'm putting that out there as I say this. I think the Saints, I just think that Carr gets too much grief. And look, I'm not even really a Carr. I know it sounds to people like I'm a Carr backer. I'm not a Carr hater. I'm not a Carr backer. I'm somewhere in the middle. I just think for what teams are spending on a quarterback, I think it's a good deal. I get it. I understand. Quarterback that wants out. We don't know that he wants out. It makes sense what you say, but winning solves that. But you're spending $40 million on a quarterback, which is basically what the average is. That's 17th, 18th in the NFL when you're talking about contracts. Just don't think it's that bad of a deal. And to say that he's not as good as, I mean, Bryce Young had a few good games. Okay. I mean, we don't know what Michael Penix is going to be. Baker Mayfield is overplayed. He's been phenomenal. We talked about how lucky the Bucs got with that one. But I still think that behind a good, solid offensive line, which the Saints have a lot of work to do to get there, Derek Carr could be the best quarterback in this division if he gets protected.
Well, we're going to disagree on that. And
I know. That's cool.
That's fine with me. I would rather this team have taken the Tampa Bay Bucs sort of deal on.
I hear you.
On how to redo a team. Man, when I think about a couple years back and talking to two scouts that were on that Bucs team, they were like, Mike, we in big trouble. I mean, we got money deficits huge because it was all chips in for Brady.
Yep.
And Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette and then Ndamukong Suh. And, you name it. They brought in a bunch of guys to win now. But then you had to cut them loose. And people say, oh, the salary cap is just a myth. Oh,
and half their offensive line.
But it ain't a myth to the NFL. My thing about the salary cap is that it's almost like you have maxed out a credit card. And so you go with another credit card at 0% interest for 6 months. But guess what? You still got to pay back the money one way or another. You still got to pay it back. The Bucs did the smart thing. They really did get lucky with Baker. And I mean, listen, nobody could have predicted that Baker would have played that well and been that type leader for the Bucs. We saw it happen in Minnesota past year with Sam Darnold. I don't think anybody really thought Darnold would play that good. Now, once he got into the playoff time, things came apart on him. But they rebuilt through the draft. You go back 3 years. They have every draft choice still on that roster. Everyone.
And now, though, you talk about the Bucs and where things could. And look, I think they're the best team in the division. I'm not blowing smoke. I think Tampa Bay is the best team in the division. I agree with you what they've done. They've gotten lucky, but they've also done a good job. They also had 2 stud receivers in the fold when they made these moves that they knew they were going to be able to hold on to. But now they're paying Baker Mayfield $30 and $40 million, $30 million this year and $40 million next year. So he better live up to what he's done the last 2 years.
Yeah, and you bring up the money with Carr because I've always felt Derek was a middle-of-the-road guy in the NFL from a starter standpoint. He's a middle-of-the-road guy. He'll have the highest of highs and then the lowest of lows. And so if you're willing to ride the roller coaster, that's what he's going to be for you. The thing with it today is becoming more and more apparent is that the best friend of a quarterback is a running game. And we are living a little bit about how we grew up, where the running game was really a big thing. And I think one of the craziest stats of the 2024 season is the Eagles ran the football more than anybody in the NFL. They were one. Amount of passes thrown, they were 32nd.
That's right.
Think that. When have you had a Super Bowl team that's 1-32?
I don't think ever.
Not in my lifetime, I can't.
No.
That's amazing to me. But it goes to show you that if you have that running game, and I'll cut Derek a lot of slack on this, he has not had that with the team. He has not had that offset other than the 2 early games where they ran the ball well. They really, really ran the ball well. But when they played the Eagles in game 3, it wasn't quite the case because they saw those monsters up front like what the Chiefs did. And man, how are we going to match up against that? I do think the Eagles, and I'm always about history does sort of repeat itself. It may not be the exact same thing, but it's got a similar ring of the bell. We grew up in an era where the running backs and the running game was king. Okay. You still have to have a great quarterback because you got to make throws. And the Cowboys, with a Roger Staubach, or the Steelers had Bradshaw. The 49ers had Montana. The Giants. Okay, Phil Simms was a good to very good player. But, boy, one thing the Giants did, they could run the ball.
Yeah.
You look at the old Redskins with Joe Gibbs.
Yeah.
Winning Super Bowls, 3 quarterbacks. But I know one running back that, man, he kicked your butt. And that was
Riggins.
John Riggins.
Yeah.
I'm watching the new version of Riggins in his 30s now with Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is what I saw with John Riggins in the 70s and 80s.
And Earl Campbell the same way.
Yeah, and Earl's career was a little shorter, and you could see, man, he had a lot of wear down. But one thing with Bum fed him the ball quite a bit. But Riggins was lucky, and he even talks about this early in his career. He wasn't necessarily that workhorse guy, when he was early with the Jets. Now, when he was with the Washington Redskins of then, that's a different story. Gibbs was, man, listen, you got it. I don't care if you spend all week in traction, which he would do, and then he would play on Sunday. Practice is for the unskilled. Riggins, come on, he didn't need no practice. But I do think we're seeing a subtle change because the defenses have gotten smaller. Now, I'm going to play big boy football with you, and I'm going to shove it down your throat. Now, until you get bigger, I'm going to continue doing it. And then when you get bigger, guess what? I already got the passing game already set. I can throw it downfield. But they do it off of 3 wide receiver sets. So you necessarily now are stretching the bigger guys out, that they have to cover a little bit more room. The other part about this, Jim, that's going to be interesting, Pete Jenkins and I had this conversation, and he was like, what has changed more over the last 3 or 4 years? I said, Pete, I do 5 camps every year. I see these 6'3", 6'2", 6'4" guys. They're 210, 215 today. I tell them, what do you play on defense? No, coach, I don't play on defense. I'm a wide receiver. I'll play tight end. You don't play any defense. We become specialized in offensive football, catching it. Where are we going to find the 3-4 defensive ends? Not only today, I think we're maybe seeing the last hoorah of them in this draft class. 3 years from now, if we still breathing, watch the question. Where are the 3-4 outside linebacker defensive ends? They're not going to be there.
That's why they don't even call them linebackers anymore. They just call them edge rushers because they're not even, it's not like, remember Pat Swilling? That's kind of really the same thing he was. And they just don't call him that anymore.
Yeah, they call him an edge today. They're not edge, not even linebacker.
Yeah, they don't even call him defensive lineman or a linebacker. They just call him an edge rusher. I mean, that's kind of.
So I could put Pete's got the line about how many school buses could you line up with receivers at these camps? I was like 4. He said, how many of them could you put on the bus of edge guys? I told him I couldn't fill up half a bus.
Yeah, and look, I think part of that is if you go back in the high school, what I was talking about before, it's all this 7-on-7 stuff, and they just want to be skillful. Even the people, even the players that aren't catching the football, they just want to play more of this 7-on-7 kind of football. That's what they play in the summer. That's what they play in the late spring and the summer, and that's kind of become, I think, ingrained in these kids' mentality.
And so not only is it with the 16, 17-year-olds today, it's filtered down to the 10, 11-year-olds. It's not going to change.
It's true.
Anytime, it's not going to do it. And so I'm telling you now, the one thing I see at all these camps is I look around for the edge, a defensive end, outside linebacker, and a 3-4. Where are they? They're not here. Now, I can find a big man, but here's the best part. A lot of times, if I got a big man and he can play defensive tackle,
right?
If he wants, oh no, they got me on offense. I'm protecting the quarterback.
They didn't even want to move.
Offensive world.
Yeah.
And so we see maybe the last hoorah in this draft class where 24 of my top 75 are defensive linemen.
You may not see that again in your draft rankings.
I'll put it to you this way. In my lifetime, I'm not seeing it again. Listen, I did 40 years before I saw it. So, you know damn well, I ain't living 40 more years.
Well, Mike, and that's another reason why I keep telling people this. The Saints don't need to draft a defensive lineman in the first round because there are so many of them. You can get one in the second round. Don't just reach out there to get one in the first round when they're in the second round. I'm not saying you're going to get the same guy in the second round, but anybody who says that offensive lineman isn't the biggest need on this football team is living in la-la land. I mean, they're crazy. There's no question that offensive line is. That's why go get one in the second round. You want to draft defensive lineman in the second round? Go ahead. But this is deep for deep linemen.
Yeah, I agree with you. The other thing, too, is this class of offensive linemen is not as good as it was last 3 years, certainly not of last year.
Not even close to last year.
So when I think about teams picking in the 20s through 35,
and trading up.
Everybody's looking for linemen, okay? I don't care how good you are, you're looking for somebody.
Yep.
The people like the Josh Connolly Jr.'s, Josh Simmons, Gray Zabel, those guys are coming off the board before the receiver and the running back, okay?
No doubt.
They coming off. You may not have a shot when you pick in round 2, because those linemen might be peeled off the board by then, offensive line. So what it does, it shoves down a defensive player. It shoves him closer to you that way. So I agree with you totally, Jim, on your thought process.
It just makes more sense. And look, even if you think they're what Saints need both. I mean, they've made so many moves, and I'm not saying that the defensive line is set now that they've re-signed Shepard and Saunders, and Chase Young's reworked his deal, and Cam Jordan's coming. But where are you going to put? And you're not even talking about Brisset yet. Well, I mean, and Foskey, what are you going to do with picking a defensive lineman in the first round that is going to be forced into the starting lineup, and then you're just wasting a player that you already have? I'm not saying the players you have are great, but they're not bad. The defensive line situation to me is not in that bad of a spot. Of course, I want to build in the trenches. No question. I just think that even if you think it's what, it just makes more sense. You've got to go O-lineman first. And like you said, there just aren't that many. This might be one of the weakest offensive linemen, at least at the top. Now, you might have more depth in the middle of this draft, but as far as the top goes, I just think it's one of the weaker offensive lineman drafts I've seen, especially for a first and maybe even a second round.
I think if you're looking at, again, the capsule of the last 5 years, it's the weakest offensive line class.
Yeah.
From talent depth, it's the weakest one in the last 5 years. There's no Joe Alton in this draft class by
not
any
even
stretch.
close.
My thing is, I would put Fuaga up against any lineman in this draft class.
I agree.
Look, get picked.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if the Saints were drafting where they drafted last year, they'd be SOL. I mean, they really would. They'd have to either trade up or figure something out and maybe make a move in free agency to reach for Mekhi Becton or whatever. Someone was asking about Mekhi Becton. I mean, do you think I'm not a big Mekhi Becton fan? I think that he's had his issues, his time in the league, and obviously, maybe he was okay with the Jets. I don't know, but what do you think about him in a potential free agent deal? The Saints do have a little bit of money. They actually have $19.5 million available as we speak right now.
I think he made the right decision to sign with the Chargers.
Oh, I didn't see that he signed with the Chargers. I didn't see that, Gabe.
I think if I was not going to re-sign back with Philly, the Chargers
I didn't see that.
would have been the team that I would have looked at if I was Mekhi.
Right.
Built right for him. And now I get to put him right alongside Joe Alt.
Right.
So, man, I got two guys that's going to block out the sun, and I'm going to run the ball. The one thing with Mekhi that and watching him when he was in college and even with the Jets, you put him out on the edge, his lack of great foot speed and coordination was not a strong point at all. When they kicked him inside, and to see how well he played, it was really remarkable because he was a totally different look player being kicked inside. But man, he cashed in. I think it's a $10 million a year deal for him with the Chargers.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, 2 years, $20 million.
Yeah. And so I think it's a really good fit. My thing about people say, well, it's a good fit for the Saints. I have no idea. I don't know what type of offense they're going to run.
Yeah.
So for me to say it's a good fit, that's a difficult call if it's a good fit, because we don't even know what type offense or defense that they're running on this team.
What about some other guys? And I'm looking at who's available left. I mean, they're not going to spend the money to get like Cam Robinson or Brandon Sheriff, who's 33 years old anyway. I mean, is there anybody else that appeals to you on the free agent market?
If I went after a guy, I would try to get someone that I think could play immediately and be a starter, even if it's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Even if it's a 1-year deal and I bridge that guy till I can find somebody long-term inside. I've always told you this, that I'm a big believer in building from the inside out. Center, guard, then flop your tackles. And I think for this football team, they have to look at it the exact same way. I think you've got to build from the inside out with a team. Now, if you get a chance to pick a really good tackle, because now you can do a little maneuvering. If you get the right tackle, you can get a guy that you can swing and kick inside. So you best of both worlds. But if I could get me a veteran inside guard that could play for 2025, reasonable price, 1 year, that's what I would do.
And if I'm looking right now, as I look on Sport Track of the guys that are available, possibility right now as I'm looking, like we said, Brandon Sheriff, who's going to command probably a $13-14 million contract even for 1 year.
I'm not paying that for him.
Yeah, exactly. So then you look at a Shaq Mason, who's probably also going to get somewhere 10 to 12 million. You can't pay that kind of money. And then you're talking about guard, you got to go all the way down to somebody like Will Hernandez. And you say, who? Yeah, exactly. John Feliciano, guys like that. Those aren't guys that would really make an impact. So I don't know that there's a guard out there, which leads me back to, do you think, we talked about it earlier, and I know you didn't say too much about it. I'm interested in your thoughts of the potential of a Trevor Penning move into a guard. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
I mean, it's a question mark.
Yeah, I don't know how their new offensive line coach feels about him.
Yeah.
I do know the prior one who went to Seattle, he felt Trevor was a better tackle than a guard. And basically, sort of, I'm not trying to put words in his mouth, but he was like, okay, if he's got issues at tackle, the same sort of issues would show up inside at guard.
Right.
And I agree with that. Totally. But I think they felt he was better at tackle than guard. I don't know what the new offensive line coach of the Saints feels about Trevor. His issues to me are hand placement and his inability to consistently get his pads and kind of control a defensive lineman. And that's been an issue from day one, but I think it shows up much more out on the edge than it does inside. And you could say there are some similarities between him and Mekhi Becton. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of similarities between them. We see that it worked out for Becton, at least sort of. I mean, you get paid $10 million for 2 years, $20 million over 2 years, average of $10 million. I mean, that means it's worked out a little bit. I just think, look, you're talking about John Benton, who again moved to Seattle with Kubiak and is going to be the O-line coach there with Seattle. I just think, look, he saw more in Penning than I ever saw. I didn't think Penning was salvageable. Now, again, a lot of this was because they didn't have a choice. They kind of had to do it that way, especially when you talk about Ramczyk, and they didn't know going into the season. They should have known, but I think they thought Ramczyk, there was a possibility he could be ready. Obviously, he wasn't, and now he's going to have to retire most likely. But I think
about this though, Jim. The Ramczyk, and you could see he wasn't quite the same player, and you knew he had the knee issues. More so than any other player move, has set off a domino effect on this.
Yeah, I agree.
More so than anything.
I 100% agree.
You know, with Drew Brees and his retirement, you weren't going to find anybody like Drew.
Of course.
But you take the quarterback out the equation, his kind of peeling down physically has had a bigger effect on this team than any other player in the last 5 years, with the exception of Drew.
No, and if Ramczyk is able to come back last year, I think then they do experiment with Penning at guard. I'm not saying it would have worked. I'm not saying it would have worked out or not, but there was no reason not to. He's on a rookie contract. You're not going to cut him. This is the last year of his rookie deal, so they're still going to try to find a way to play him no matter what they draft. They're going to find a way to get Penning in the game. But if Ramczyk comes back, you experiment with Penning, and last year was an experiment anyway. I mean, and to me, the difference between a 9-8 team from 2 years ago to the 5-12 team we saw last year were two things. Eric McCoy, forget about Derek Carr, because the offensive line was a let of Derek Carr getting hurt. Eric McCoy getting hurt and Ramczyk being gone. Those are the two big things, the difference between 9-8 and 5-12.
Yeah, and because the ramifications of the Ramczyk injury has set off this kind of domino effect all across the offensive line. And you would think at his age, had he not gotten hurt, you had still a long run with him. You still had another 3, 4, 5 year
years.
Run
with
Ramczyk.
Yeah, I mean, you could have signed him to. Well, he had just signed a new deal, really. But
correct.
I mean, he would have played it out. I mean, if he doesn't, I mean, but that's what happens with offensive linemen. We see it all the time. I mean, they can get one bad knee injury for an offensive lineman. I don't care if you're 26 or 27 years old. That could be the end of you, because what offensive linemen need more than anything? They need their strength, obviously, but they need their knees. And I mean, you can't play without that. And Mike, you know, I don't know what this team would have been with Ryan Ramczyk. I just think it would have been a completely different season. We'd be in a completely different situation right now, talking about different things and not so much about kicking cans if Ryan Ramczyk wouldn't have gone bye-bye, you know?
Because what you were paying Ryan Ramczyk was cheap.
Yeah. Right.
Look at the money a top right tackle or left tackle today gets. And today,
$16 million.
People were saying, oh, we played right tackle. Well, okay, defensively today, what's changed is at one time, I put my best pass rusher on the right side to go up against your left tackle.
Exactly.
Today, man, what? If I got a good pass rusher, I'm putting him on the left side against your right tackle.
Yep.
And I'm going to expose him if he's not good. So people don't get that this chess and like checkmate that's going on in the NFL. Why would I put my best pass rusher against your best pass protector?
Mike, watch the Dallas Cowboys and where Micah Parsons plays and how much he moves on he's moving all over the place. And I mean, now they have multiple pass rushers, obviously, and they had Lawrence and whatever. But I'm just saying, if you watch Micah Parsons and the way they moved him around, that's kind of what you're talking about. And it's not just Dallas that does it. Everybody's doing that now. Their best pass rushers are not staying in the same spot from week to week or even in the same game. They're moving around.
Okay, we saw this, and it is set up, and this is even another story. But we saw what Texas A&M did in a season finale against LSU with Harold Perkins. Their deal was, what? He ain't beating us. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to put two dudes to block him.
Yep.
Now, LSU overreacted to that because not everybody was going to do that. And Achane, he's still running. I mean, they ain't tackled it all game long, but they targeted Perkins out and saying, the best way to slow him down is to run right at him. And man, I think about that game. And even though you lost, kind of the dominoes that happened with Perkins, since they're trying to reinvent the wheel with a guy who is really an edge pass rusher. Bottom line, that's what he does really good. And now you're trying to make him into a middle linebacker. You're trying to make him into a cover guy. Come on. But A&M, I give Jimbo credit. I don't know who came up with that game plan, but it was perfect because I think they saw what he did against Arkansas and was like, what? That guy took over the game. He wanted for LSU. That's not going to happen. Let's bury him, and let's bury him with a lot of running with Achane. Well,
speaking of Harold Perkins, I hope he is able to come back and have a great season and up his draft stock after obviously getting hurt last year and kind of disappearing a little bit from 2 years ago. I mean, because I think when he is playing at his best, he can be dominating. I can't wait to see what happens to him in next year's draft. Mike, before we let you go real quick, last question here, just talk about what you think that, I mean, we talked about offensive line, obviously, but what do you think the Saints, they have 5 picks in the top 112 picks. Now, we know they're going to go in the trenches. They're going to go O-line, D-line early on, whether it's in the first round, second round. What else do you think they're going to do in that top 5 in the 112? I mean, I think they got to get a wide receiver, right? I think they got to go out and try to get a wide receiver, is my opinion. And now I think you probably need a defensive back as well. I mean, you get Justin Reed to come in here and play safety, and glad you got Isaac Adam to come in here and basically be a backup, 3 years, $9 million. But don't you? They probably need another cornerback now.
Yeah. The other part is you need another running back.
Yeah.
I mean, and we can talk about the receiver. I think you're looking for a specific kind of receiver. And I would look for a bigger receiver that can kind of clip the inside routes and run some of those slants. But I needed a running back. I have no idea who's going to play running back opposite Alvin Kamara. None.
Scatterbo?
And you think about people say, well, they didn't give Kendra Miller a chance. What? They gave him every chance.
Yes, they did. He'll probably get one more. He'll probably get one more.
And yeah, because of where he was picked, you're going to give him another shot at it. You would want some guy that could do similar things to Alvin, because that way you don't have to change up your offense much, especially in year one of what Moore's going to put in. So I would certainly say receiver. I would certainly say running back. The defensive backfield is something I would look at because of the fact you have no depth at either cornerback or safety. Either one.
No, you're right. I mean, if Reed or Matthew gets hurt, I mean, you kind of hose back. Now that Will Harris is gone, yeah, I mean, you're kind of in trouble. That happened.
And I was surprised. The one guy that I thought they would bring back was Will Harris. I thought of all the secondary people, I thought he played really well at. He was an intimidator. He played well against the run. He was a good open field tackler. He played better in coverage than I thought, because I saw him play in other places. He wasn't real good coverage-wise. I thought he played well last year. I'm surprised that they let him leave the building. To be honest.
The Saints, with the signing of Juwan Johnson to that's kind of a crazy deal in my opinion. But would you rather have seen them given that same money, that same contract, and maybe he wouldn't have wanted to come back anyway? But Paulson Adebo is getting almost exactly the same money. Would you rather have seen them do that and let Juwan Johnson go?
I always sort of had a feeling they were going to bring Juwan back. I can't tell you why. But I always had a feeling he was going to come back. There was a little bit of a poison pill kind of cap hit too, to the way his contract was structured. Had they not re-signed him, similar to Chase Young, where that dead money came due, bang, that day. So I always sort of had a feeling they would do that deal with Juwan Johnson. To me, he's made the all-potential team, all airline drive, but he's been spurty in the NFL. Where you saw how he ended the season last year. I thought he played really well. But, man, we had long spurts where he wasn't a very big part of the offense at all.
Yeah, and I was disappointed. I thought Dallin Holker would be a bigger part of this team last year. Maybe he will be in year two. I know he's an unsigned free agent. He didn't undrafted free agent. And so you really shouldn't have expected. But all the hype that was placed on him before the season, and we don't know how hurt Foster Moreau is. Whether he's gonna be able to play. They signed John Stoll. This team needs a tight end.
Yeah, I know what Stoll can do as a player. Having watched him at Nebraska,
he's a blocking tight end, really.
He was brought into Nebraska as a pass catching tight end.
Okay,
that's what he did in high school.
But in the NFL, he's really been playing more of a blocking tight end, right?
He's been, and I don't know, Jim, who's worked with him. But whoever did, they did a really good job with him. Man, he is a really good inline blocker, which sort of indicates to me we're going to see a lot of 12 personnel, two tight ends on this football team. Yep. I think they're going to want to emphasize protecting the quarterback and running the football.
Oh, you think? That's a different philosophy. You think that's important, Mike? Protecting the quarterback?
Just a little bit.
They haven't done that, and who knows how long. That was my biggest grief I've had with this team since Sean Payton left. Say whatever you want. Sean Payton knew he had to protect his quarterback, and that's why I'm excited about Kellen Moore, because I think Kellen Moore, his number one priority is no question in my mind. If you're going to pay $50 million for a quarterback, you're going to go out and protect his ass.
Yeah, and my thing with it, Derek is not a statue in the pocket.
No, he can move.
He can move a little bit, and so we'll see what happens there at the quarterback spot. But I think bottom line is if you don't get the line straight, you and I are going to talk about this next year at the same time.
Yep, we sure are.
Same time, because to me, that is back to the nuts and bolts of football, winning in the trenches.
We're talking about it for 3-4 years now. It's not changing. And
it didn't. But my thing is,
ever since Teron Armstead left,
where front office wise, that vision was not there.
Because the coach didn't have that vision either. I'm not blaming it all on the coach, because the front office should have had this vision. They should have stepped in and said, we need an offensive lineman, and not waited until last year to do this. And you go, instead of, a couple of years ago when you get Brisset, and I've had this discussion before, but you get Brisset fine, but then you go and get an Isaiah Foskey who's done absolutely nothing in the second round, and you've just ignored the O-line then. You kind of deserve what you get sometimes.
The other thing, too, is body types. And I think everything's hybrid in today's world.
Yeah, it is.
But other than Chase, is there another linebacker on this team, body type, to play the edge? There's one. He ain't done squat other than special teams, though. That's Foskey.
I was going to say Foskey. I was listening to another podcast. I think he only had, 4 non-special teams tackles last year?
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's something, again, how the wash comes out, we'll see.
Yeah.
But you got to look at your team and say, and even we had Jeff Duncan on, and Jeff brought up the fact when I questioned him about 3-4 defense, he said, Mike, I pressed Brandon Staley at this meet and greet that they had, and he didn't totally sort of tag, that's exactly what we're doing.
Right.
He kind of worked his way around that answer, because I think he looks at this team and says, I don't have the outside linebackers to play that. I got the inside guys. I don't have the edge guys.
Yep. You think they would have done something by now, but I don't know. Maybe they wisened up. The draft is April 24th. It kicks off. So I'd like to have you on before then. Maybe around Easter. We'll have a Easter week get together. If you got time, we'll figure it out before then. Would love to talk to you before the big draft. And I know it's going to be all we're going to be talking about here on Dattitude over the course of the next, 5 weeks?
See, we've been talking about that since October of last year. So,
unfortunately, we didn't have anything else to talk about. When you go to 7-game losing streak, you start talking about next year's draft real early. Mike, to tell you.
Next time I see Dennis Allen, I'm going to tell him, man, you started the draft process off on me real quick. Because, once he got fired, then everybody's like, man, forget about it. The season's lost. We got to talk about the draft.
I know they were jumping in here, but I refused to do it until probably December. I finally gave in and started talking about it. All right, Mike. So hopefully we can talk to you before April 24th. Have a great week and enjoy St. Patty's Day. Go put some green on, Mike. I know you don't have a lot of green in your closet. It's all purple and gold, but find a little.
Man, I got plenty green though. I had to do it today because all those LSU guys, making money, because
they did.
He maybe rub off on others.
$1 billion class of players.
The first $1 billion team in college football, 2019 LSU Tigers.
We will be listening to you on WW. You on tonight?
From 4 to 6. Actually, we'll have Justin Reed on with us, and
okay.
And Mo Padna, who's the only coach with a team in the March Madness. Will Wade joins us at 5:20.
Will Wade. I'm glad you brought up Will Wade because I never got a chance to talk about him yet today. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit later. Will Wade coming on the show tonight. And Justin Reed, sounds like a great show. 4 to 6 tonight on WWL Radio. Thank you, the great Mike Detillier here on Dattitude. We'll talk to you soon, Mike.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it, buddy.
All right. Thank you. Mike Detillier here on Dattitude. Always fun. Always a great show when Mike's I'm telling you. Not just a draft, but we're gonna have Mike on in the summer. We're gonna have an entire show, and Gabe's got a list of things we're gonna do in the offseason. I mean, we're basically gonna be talking about the draft for the next 4 to 5 weeks. There's no doubt about that. And then probably the week after the draft, we'll talk about what happened. But coming up, starting like in May, in June, and whatever, when we don't have anything else to talk about, we're gonna bring on Mike, and we're gonna be talking about things that have happened in the past because I love history talks. And I know a lot of my, audience here they're about the same age as me, maybe even a little bit older, some of them. We got to talk about that. Nick Campbell says, we all fell in the mix. I remember Mike D popped up the Foskey pick. Not this dude. I'll have to get a clip out. In fact, I'm going to find that clip somewhere. It was even before Gabe. We did our first live draft show. Was that year? Well, no. Was it that year? Oh, no. It was the year before that, actually. We did a live draft show we did part of it from Vegas. Zach, you and I went to Vegas. But the next year, we did an entire live show. And when they drafted Foskey, I was pissed. Okay? I was pissed. I'm just going to say that. So we're going to get into some other things here this morning. Jay Tucker Rafferty. Sorry. By the way, I'm going to show this again. By the way, sorry, I wasn't intentionally ignoring the comments. Mike's screen, he was so low on the screen that if I would have showed a comment, it would have covered up his face for most of. He fixed it there towards the end. So I wasn't ignoring you guys. I just didn't want to cover up Mike's face with a comment. So that's honestly why I didn't show a lot of them there. There's some I'm going to go back to. No, not that one. Jay Tucker Rafferty says, how did they ignore the O-line? They have 3 1s. And a second on your O-line, they just suck. They did ignore the O-line. Just because you got 3 1s over the course of time, over the course of 8 years, when they drafted Foskey, I'm going to go back to that. They needed to draft an offensive lineman then. I said it in that draft. When they drafted Brisset, and he's turned out to be a good player. I'm not getting on Brian Brisset, and okay, even if you want to make that pick, fine. But you can't make that pick to me when you going back in time. Hindsight's 2020. I'm not saying anything I didn't say back then. They needed to make the offensive line that pick then. So, again, UBN says that I wanted to. No, I just wanted to ignore you. You were talking bad about me. You think I saw what you said. Walt Crawford, go McNeese. Oh, I'm going to talk about McNeese in a minute. We didn't talk. This isn't an All Saints show. And Gabe's coming on in a minute. And I got to read about my friends at Evangeline in just a minute. I've got something to say about Will Wade. Everybody's loving them some Will Wade right now because of what he's done to McNeese. Doesn't change the fact that he's still douchebaggery. Sorry. Gabe, I don't know if that's thumbs down. You agree with me or you don't agree with me. Douchebaggery. I don't miss Will Wade at all. Whole different story. KC Paul says, do I see the Saints get in the playoffs with Derek Carr under Kellen Moore and the new roster? I think they have. I said this at the beginning of the show. I know you probably weren't here, KC. And here's what I think. I'm not blaming it all on Dennis Allen, okay? Because Mickey Loomis has obviously had his hand in this, in the personnel decisions that have been made, whatever. But I don't think there's enough that's being said about where this team was and just the whole mentality and the injuries and everything. And look, they could have the injuries again, and then Kellen Moore's in the same boat as Dennis Allen. I just don't think there's enough being put on the fact of how low this team was with Dennis Allen here and how things can change in a hurry with a real coach here. Dennis Allen's a defensive coordinator. He's not a head coach. I said that a long time ago. So the roundabout way to answering your question is yes. If they fix this offensive line at least somewhat, I think they're at a place now to where if they can sign another free agent backup, and I'm talking about a real, no offense to Will Clapp. Okay. I covered Will Clapp in high school. I don't think he's at the end of his line. I think he's a fine backup. He's especially at center where the Saints really need a backup. He can come in and play for McCoy right away if he has to. Not trying to diss on Will Clapp. The Saints need another backup free agent there, and then to use your first round pick to go get a starter, Will Campbell per se, someone like that. You protect Derek Carr. You can hate Derek Carr all you want, okay? If you protect him, the Saints have a chance to be a good, not great team. If you don't protect him, they're going to be bad again because he's going to get hurt, and you're going to see Spencer Rattler in there. They're not drafting a quarterback. You can cut this clip out and do whatever you want. They're not drafting a quarterback. If that's where they're not drafting a quarterback. There's no question about it. Chad Gage, is this a weak lineman year in the draft? Is there a substantial difference for what we can get in the first, second round? Honestly, there's a substantial difference because where the Saints are picking. I think after Membo and Campbell, it just drops off significantly. That's why it's even more important. I haven't listened to a lot of Saints podcasts over my vacation until a couple of days ago, and I was trying to catch up with what, I don't know if you want to call them, I don't call them the competition. I don't think I'm competing with some of these people. If you like listening to me, you like listening to me because I say what's real and not what people want to hear. If you're listening to some of these other podcasts, I'm not putting them down. That's what they think they need to do to survive. It is what it is. Some of these other podcasts, they say what they think people want to hear. And I think at some point they actually start believing what other people want to hear. Makes it sound more realistic. But I think what this team has done and put themselves in a position to do is compete. It beats the hell out of the alternative. Nobody wants to watch 5-12 again. You got to tear it down. You tear it down. Again, I'm going to get into this with Gabe in a minute. Still other things I want to talk about. We're at the 134 mark. I get we're going to be long today. It is what it is. It's our first day back. I knew it was going to be a long show. It is what it is. But I don't want to watch that crap again. And there is nothing, and I mean nothing, that says if you lose, if you go 5-12 again, if you tear it down, if you let Derek Carr go and you eat the $50 million and you eat Cam Jordan's salary or you eat Tyrann Mathieu salary, you don't sign Justin Reed and you just let it, and then you start fresh in 2027, there's nothing that says you're not going to suck again in 2027. Okay? You're not going to bring in a rookie head coach who had, I mean, honestly, think about this. Kellen Moore, to me, I'm not saying he's going to be Sean Payton, but he has the potential to be a Sean Payton-like coach, a guy that's going to be here for a long time, a guy, there's no question that Kellen Moore brings this offensive mentality, things that he can't do. He can do things that other coaches can't do. It's a new concept. It's a new way of playing today. They're not going to put him in a position to lose. And if you didn't re-sign Derek Carr, if you didn't restructure Derek Carr, he doesn't want to be here. Nobody knows that he doesn't want to be here. Just because you haven't seen him on TV doesn't mean he doesn't want to be here. Where does he want to be? Or is he going to get somewhere else? And besides that, the Saints weren't going to eat Derek Carr's debt cap money and let him go play somewhere else. It didn't make sense. It wasn't going to happen. You can hate it all day long. It was never going to happen. Molly Mal thinks he knows. We cannot compete with an uninspired quarterback who thought about testing the trade market. How do you know he thought about testing the trade market? Because the Fanboy podcast told you so? That's what I'm talking about. They make up shit, okay? I know people don't think. People make up shit all the time. It happens every day, all the time. Now, maybe he was wanting to test the trade market. But I'm going to say another thing. Even if he wasn't, even if he's a quote-unquote malcontent right now. By the way, winning changes everything. Once he gets in here and starts working, he's not going to be thinking about that anymore. That's going to be out of the window, okay? Nobody's going to be thinking about where you want to be once you get into off-season training and you start moving. Nobody's going to think about that anymore. But I'm just going to say this about a quote-unquote malcontent. Again, I'm not pro-Derek Carr. I'm not anti-Derek Carr. The only reason why it sounds like I'm pro-Derek Carr to a lot of you is because you hate him so much. Anything that's even middle of the road sounds like uber positive on Derek Carr. This is the same guy, Mally Mallet. That's exactly why. Carr knows how much the fan base feels about him. If you were a malcontent, if everyone was hating on you, if the media was hating on you, if every podcaster was hating on you, if every fan, not every fan, but 90% of the fans were railing on you, if when you got announced at a Saints game in the starting lineup and they announce your name and people boo, you'd hate it too. You'd want to be somewhere else too. You'd get tired of it too. So I feel compelled at times to take up for him again. Are there better quarterbacks out there than Derek Carr? Of course there are. Will the Saints have one? Derek Carr, I don't know how many times to say this. I mean, if you watch this show more than twice, you know that I've said and will continue to say that Derek Carr is not the future of this football team. He's the bridge to the future of this football team. You can't just go from nothing to the next quarterback. I mean, I hate the concept of drafting a rookie quarterback unless he's a super stud and just throwing him to the wolves, whoever that quarterback's going to be. The Saints go and draft their quarterback in 26. Their future, which they may or may not do. You want to throw a rookie to the wolves? How often does it work? Not everybody's a CJ Stroud. Look at the rest of the quarterbacks in that list, from that class. How's Anthony Richardson working out? How's Bryce Young work out until the last half of last season? And the only reason why he even played the last half of last season is because they put the backup in and Andy Dalton got hurt. Just saying. A few more things to talk about before I get to Gabe. And I'm going to let you know now, we're going to wrap up this show with the Saints. There's going to be more comments about the Saints. Gabe's going to talk. I think Gabe's talking about the Saints. He may have something else to talk. We'll see. Whatever he wants to talk about. We told you earlier, we will let you know more about how Evangeline Securities can help you figure out what your family-run or privately held business might be worth and whether it's time to sell. How do they do it, you ask? Well, thanks for asking. After their complimentary valuation of your company, if you decide to proceed, native New Orleanians Nick, Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process from established private equity funds around the world. And they will maximize the return for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities is the top producer on their platform. There are very few companies like them in this area, and none with their dedication and success, and a company that would never, ever have $50 million in dead cap space. Ever. They are fully licensed, and they're ready to serve you, so get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. It ain't the cap space. It ain't the draft. What is really important? Come on, people. The rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. No, Mally Mal, don't get me wrong with what I was saying. By the way, if you're listening to the podcast, he says, I respect my take on Carr, but he disagrees with me. Absolutely. Please. I want people who disagree with me to watch this show, and I want them to comment. I want to show their comments. I didn't mean disrespect back at you. I may have said it the wrong way. Just saying. UBN says Anthony Richardson is so bad they brought in Daniel Jones. Dude, come on. All right, a couple other things to talk, and I didn't make a slide for this. That was so real quick. I know Gabe has put together the brackets, the NCAA men's tournament. It begins on Thursday. Well, it begins tonight or tomorrow night, whatever. Tomorrow night. It's Monday. It begins tomorrow night. But I don't consider that starting. The 68 team crap is dumb. Okay. It should be 64. I barely even recognize that it starts. Anyway, the brackets start on Thursday. We're going to have an ESPN Dattitude, not an ESPN. We're going to have a Dattitude little contest for straight fun. If you win it, I will announce your name on the air on whatever show after the day after the championship. Well, I guess it'll be 2 days after the championship because we do a show on Tuesday. But if you want to join, it's on ESPN. Gabe will talk about it more in a minute. But find Dattitude, okay? If you're listening to the podcast, you know this already. Attitude with the D in front of it on ESPN. It's easy to find. There's no password. You just join in, fill out your bracket, you're in. If you win, you're in. You can do 2 brackets if you want, but don't put any more than 2. Gabe, do they let you limit that? Do you know? 1? Oh, you can only do 1. There you go. You can only do 1. And there's no reason to do more than that anyway. We're just doing it for fun. There's no prizes. I'm hoping to get to a spot in the near future where we can find some prizes to offer you. We're going to do that. We just aren't there yet. So anyway, go over to ESPN and find their brackets. Look for Dattitude group. You can put your bracket in the Dattitude group. Again, you could be competing against Gabe and myself and whoever else we get to get in there. Real quickly, some other things that I didn't get to talk about last weekend, the end of my vacation, the bad weather that was around here in Louisiana. By the way, all my thoughts, prayers go out to the people of Kentwood, Louisiana, and Tylertown, Mississippi. I know it was a rough, and then the people of Arkansas. That's a whole different story. Rough weekend of weather. I decided my wife and kids were going to get the girls' hair did. So I went off to Lake Charles this weekend in my new truck, and I watched. Well, I thought I was going to watch my Shaw Eagles win the state championship in Division II Select. Didn't happen. They lost to a better team, the Hannon Hawks, the 2 seed in Division II. Wanted to give a shout out today to a friend of mine who coaches at Hannon, known Errol Goff, the coach at Hannon High, for a long time. Errol and I worked together at the Times-Picayune about 30, maybe longer than 30 years ago. Maybe 31, 32 years ago. We were both agate clerks at the time. Errol has been gone and made himself a little bit more successful than I. He was the women's basketball coach at Southeastern for a while. And for the last, I think, 5 years, has been the coach at Hannon High. Has won his 2nd state championship there, beat my Shaw Eagles. Congrats to the Hannon Hawks. Congrats to Country Day. What's special about Country Day winning, I think, their 8th state championship? Congrats to Mike McGuire over there at Country Day, the basketball coach and the athletic director. But they won the MVP of that game, Country Day, winning the state championship in Division III, I believe. Curtis McAllister, the son of Deuce McAllister, was the MVP of that game. Great, fantastic game. That one I saw on TV. And then also on Saturday, the first game, I saw the entire second half. St. Augustine, the St. Augustine Purple Knights. Congratulations to them. They won their 7th state championship. So a good weekend of basketball. How about the LSU Tigers? Not a good year for them, as I told you I was going to get in to Will Wade for just a minute. They have declined a bid to the NIT, as they should have. Why the hell they're even being well, I know why they're being invited to. They were the 15th team in the SEC. They were the next team to not make the NCAA tournament. So they were, I think it was an automatic bid. They were offered to the NIT, which they declined. So then they invited 12 and 18 South Carolina, who I believe also declined. Where has Matt McMahon brought this program? Where is LSU basketball going? He's going to get another year. He's going to get another year. You may not like it. I do. I think he deserves another year, but that one more. That's it. His problem is when he came in, the biggest problem, and again, this is him. So, I mean, it's his own doing. He brought in a lot of players with him. But since he's been here, they've had nothing but one and dones. He can't get any consistency. He's had injuries. I don't like the discipline that they've showed in this team. LSU men's basketball's got a problem. However, that doesn't escape the fact that where this team was and why they're in this spot. Now, you can blame a lot of things. If you don't win, you get blamed for stuff. So I get why people wouldn't want Matt McMahon to come back. Fine. But why are they in this place? Why are they in this place? Because Will Wade left this team in shambles. Controversy, scrutiny. If he wouldn't have left, this team would have been put on probation. There's no question. I mean, that's not debatable. We can debate it in a minute. You can pump your fist, Gabe. This team was going to be put on probation had he not left, and a giant lawsuit that he dodged some kind of way. Idiot saying, don't get me started on Will Wade. Good, he's winning at McNeese. Somebody will give him a job. Probably someone like Ole Miss. He'll get another job somewhere. And good for you. You cheated at McNeese. Great. You don't have any proof. Okay, let me just say this. Let me retract that real quick so I don't get in trouble in case Will Wade's listening to this podcast. There is no proof that he cheated at McNeese. But McNeese isn't 27-6 suddenly because he's that great of a coach. Get out of here. Whatever. I'm gonna leave that at that. Tulane heartbreak in the AAC tournament in the semifinals, losing to Memphis. Thought they had the game won. Didn't happen. Feel bad for the Green Wave. Ron Hunter has done a good job there, I think, as he could possibly do. Just basketball. Why is men's basketball suck in this state? It was never great, but it used to be a lot better than it is now. It's not good. It's not good. LSU women, the 3 seed in the Eugene, Oregon regional. They will play San Diego State. You're going to have to stay up late, boys and girls. 10:15 p.m. on Saturday night on ESPN. The good news is in the Spokane 1 bracket, if they are able to advance, they won't have to play a Caitlin Clark. Well, she's gone. They wouldn't have to play her anyway, but someone like that or a South Carolina in this bracket, they could potentially meet up with 2 seed NC State or top seeded UCLA, neither of whom I think they match up well against. The injuries are mounting for the Tigers. Their 2 best players have been hurt. We'll see what happens as they go forward. We'll talk more about that probably on a couple podcasts coming. I've not talked at all about the LSU women. I will going forward. Apathy's got a point. Until Mulkey beats South Carolina, I don't care. I hear you. But if they play South Carolina in this tournament, win or lose, it's a good thing because it means they're playing them in the national championship game because they're on different sides of the bracket. LSU baseball sweeps Missouri. They are now 20-1. The top-ranked Tigers, in case you haven't noticed, judging by the attendance, you haven't. Gabe's saying 20-2. I think they're 20-1. You're going to have to type in who they lost to besides Omaha. Okay, I believe you. I thought I looked this up. But interesting enough, by the way, their loss to Omaha They're number 2. They're number 2 in one of them, no number 1 in another. There are multiple rankings, Gabe. Yes, there are. There are multiple rankings. Doesn't matter. And they'll be number 1 when today's over. Their only loss of the year, by the way, to Omaha is to a team that is 5-13. Now they haven't. This was 15 games ago. They've won 15 in a row. So this is back when they were 4-0, 5-0, whatever. The only loss is to Omaha, who's 5-13, and they got swept this weekend in their Summit League opening series against St. Thomas. You ever heard of St. Thomas? I hadn't. St. Thomas of St. Paul, Minnesota. Never heard of them. Anyway, Omaha got swept by St. Thomas, and that's the only team to beat LSU. I believe it was 5-4. They lost that one 15 games ago. Anyway, Tigers 20-1. Impressive sweep of Missouri. Had to dodge weather on Saturday. We'll be talking more about LSU baseball over the course of the next few weeks for sure. Maybe not right away. They're just starting SEC play. So we may touch on them and give you an update and tell you what we think. But look, this team's got the look, right? It's early. We'll see how they do when they get into tougher SEC competition, because the SEC in baseball is a lot like the SEC in basketball, man. I tell you. It's SEC is just a monster conference. We all knew that. Meanwhile, Tulane is 15-5. They won 2 out of 3 against Xavier this weekend. AAC opening series next weekend against Wichita State. Now, these are all sorts of things that the new shorts that I was telling you about early in the show. I'm really gonna try to ramp up, and I call them shorts. You might call them TikToks. They're only TikToks if they're on TikTok. They're gonna be on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. These are things that I'm gonna try to do that are not from the show, separate from the show. On days when we don't have a show, I'm going to try to do a morning update. These are the kinds of things I'll probably be talking about. Or maybe if the Saints made a move and we don't have a show that morning, I'll be talking about those things. So make sure, another reason to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because I will update that every morning. I hope to have some new content for you from now on every day. Even when we go off on the weekend, Gabe gives me a list of what times, gives me the timestamp list. And I try to go back and make sure, and I've been terrible at it, but we got a new program that's supposedly going to help me, an online program that's going to help me do that. So I will be giving you shorts, which will be highlights of this show, and also morning updates when we don't have a show. And if something happens, I'll just jump on and do a short and put it on. It won't be live. But another reason to, again, subscribe to YouTube. If you like TikTok, and go find us on TikTok as well. And lastly, before we get back to the Saints, 2 quick things. Players Championship ended this morning. They had a long suspension. If you didn't see it, I didn't realize it was starting that early. I had to go look it up. Shocker of all shockers, Rory McIlroy won the Players Championship this morning. J.J. Spawn lost his battle against the 17th hole as he hit it in the water, and then he said, "Where is it?" I can't believe a professional golfer would hit it in the water and then say, "Where is it?" You didn't see the splash on the other side of the green? I don't know. Anyway, Players Championship. I didn't get to watch it as much as I would have liked to. It was a busy weekend. It's my favorite. It really is. I mean, now I'm biased because my grandmother, and I've told you all this on this show before, if you've been a long time listener, my grandmother actually used to live directly across the street from Sawgrass. Like, I would walk across the street, go to Sawgrass. Right there. A1A, Beachfront Avenue, boys and girls. And what's those days? So yeah, I used to go to the TPC way back when I was a kid. That was a long time ago. And then lastly, a lot to catch up on before we go back to the Saints. I didn't even mention the Pels. There's a reason for that. They're 18-50. They're 3 games out of last place in the West. There you go. There's my Pels comment. UBN's right. I did watch a lot of yesterday before the weather delay. Rory tried to give it away. Nobody wanted it. He's right. But it is about that time where I start getting back into golf. UBN's always into golf. We'll be talking about, I'm sure I'll have him on for our Masters show coming up soon. Okay, back in the Saints. Although I don't know what he's going to say. I have no idea what he's going to. He can lead off with whatever he wants to lead off, because we haven't had a chance to really talk in 3 weeks. Mondays with Gabe. Good morning and welcome back.
Morning. LSU baseball is number 2 in the country, by the way.
Okay.
The only ranking that had them number 1 was D1 baseball, which is arguably the most important. They moved Tennessee above them today in their latest top 25 after Tennessee swept number 7 Florida this weekend.
Okay. Not that any of that crap matters this time of year anyway.
Tennessee is a very good baseball team.
Yeah. Again, none of that matters in March.
Yeah. Speaking of March, I hate my first bracket. I've gotten a chance to look at it once.
Why do you hate it?
I just, I fill it out. I have Tennessee in my Final Four, which is not going to stand by Thursday because Rick Barnes can't coach in March. I'm going to change it. Okay. I'm gonna tweak this thing a billion times before Thursday.
See, I'm not a tweaker, and I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, there was one of the ones that Florida won. I think it was the one they won 2 in a row. What, like 6-7 years ago? How long ago was that?
No, longer than that. 06, 07 or 07, 08.
When did they win again after that?
Joakim Noah. They haven't won after that.
That was that long ago?
It was that long, yeah. It was late 2000s.
That
was the Billy Donovan back-to-back.
All right, I'm gonna tell you why. In the last one, they were the overwhelming favorite to win going into the tournament, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, I filled out my bracket, and then I got to the end, and I had Florida win, and I'm like, I hate, me, I hate going chalk, especially super chalk. Okay,
yeah,
like everybody's gonna pick Florida to win. I can't pick Florida to win. Yeah, I mean, everybody, and it turned out that almost everyone did in my bracket. So anyway, I was in this giant bracket with like 500 people. Okay, there's a shit ton of money in this bracket. Okay, and I changed it from Florida. I don't remember who I changed to. I left Florida in the championship game, but I changed it to whoever they were playing. They both made it. I got the championship game right. Anyway, had I left it Florida, I would have won the damn bracket because I was ahead of everybody else that had. It's the rare time you're like, well. Usually you say, well, I got Florida, but everybody else has Florida, and I'm like 8th of the people that have Florida. I have no chance to win. It was the opposite. I was ahead of everyone, and I was so pissed off at myself because I think I cost myself like, I don't know, something stupid like $1,200 or something because I changed it last minute. So since then, when I make a bracket, done with it. Even if I hate it, I don't change it because you never know what's going to happen to it.
I'm going to change it because Rick Barnes can't coach in March.
Oh, I'm not telling you not to. I'm
not having him go to the Final Four. It's just not going to. It's same thing with Auburn. If you have Auburn in your championship game, change your bracket.
Oh, really?
Bruce Pearl cannot coach in March.
All right.
Do you know how many Final Fours he's made in his career, Joe?
Not a lot.
In his 21 career years as a head coach, he's made the Final Four once. He is 17-13 overall in March. 0 titles. Auburn also has 0 national titles.
Yeah, I don't think I'm picking them to win. I think Florida's going to
win. And no team has ever lost 3 of their last 4 games heading into the tournament and won the tournament.
Well, I'm pissed at myself because I made a bet I bet on Alabama before the season started at 12-1. And they're 12-1 right now. They're the same exact odds.
Yeah.
But I'm pissed at myself because I could have had Florida at 10 or 11-1 like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I wanted to bet it then, and I didn't, and now they're like 3-1. And so I know that a lot of people are going to pick Florida. It's either Florida or Duke, whatever.
I've got Duke in mind.
But I'm still pissed that I didn't. I'm pissed that I didn't bet on that. So anyway.
We'll see. I got Michigan State while I was on vacation at pretty good odds.
What are they seeded?
They're second.
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, I tell my son, I'm like, I just don't think anyone seeded past third has a real shot.
No, and I mean historically, and I know you said you hated chalk. I've done a lot of trends and a lot of research for the bracket over the last few days. 25 of 39. Teams that have won the tournament under this current format since 1985 have been 1 seeds, including 13 of the last 17.
Yeah, but there's a difference.
Safe to say that chalk is.
Yeah, but there's a difference between chalk and like every year when you go in, there's always a team that gets like 40 to 50% of the.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that team more often than not doesn't necessarily. Maybe it's a year to pick Houston. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about this whole kick in the can thing as we go back to the Saints. Gary Thomas, by the way, asked, "Are the Saints done bringing in new solid talent in free agency?" I think the answer to that, Gary, is no, because as I said earlier, the Saints are no longer 32nd in the NFL and how much money they have. Now, this doesn't talk about what the future is going to look like. We'll get into that in a minute, but the Saints right now are $19.5 million, and I believe that includes Cam Jordan's restructuring. I don't think we ever saw what he ended up taking, so it may or may not include that. But according to Spotrac, SPOTRAC.com, which is where you should go to check these things out, Saints are now 23rd in the NFL in cap space money, again with $19.5 million. So they are going to spend it. They're not going to let it sit there. They're going to spend it.
They are 24th with 18.6 according to Over the Cap.
The Spotrac and Over the Cap are close enough. They're within a million of one another. All right. Again, I don't think one of them does. At least one of them. I don't know that either one of them counts, because I have not seen anything public on Cam Jordan's. I don't know what he took. We know that he probably took a pay cut.
Too much.
Well, I mean, you kind of didn't have a choice. Either that or you're going to eat 20 million. You're not going to eat 20 million. And you weren't going to.
Sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you do. And Gary says, any idea who they will pursue? I don't know that it's going to be any big splash guy. I think if you gave, in my opinion, I think if you're going to go out and spend this money, you probably want a number 3 receiver or you want solid. And I don't mean, again, no disrespect to Will Clapp, but real depth at offensive line.
Yeah, and real depth on the offensive line doesn't exist at this point.
There's really not a lot.
Yeah, and then as far as the number 3 receiver, I mean, your best option out there, or your best options are Stephon Diggs and Amari Cooper. I don't think either would want to come to New Orleans anyway.
I don't want either one of those.
Both of them are going to be ring chasing at this point in their career.
Yeah.
So
we'll see what happens.
Say what you will about the Saints. I think we can all agree they're not going to win a ring.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think anything's possible. I put my $3 on them at, what was it, 125?
Yeah, that's just good fan service. You have to.
I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean, I don't want to be the one time that they would do something and I didn't have money on them, I'd be pissed if I didn't. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't think realistically people are going to think the Saints are going to win a Super Bowl. But that being said, I will stand by what I said earlier in the show when Mike was here. I think they're a little bit better than they probably were last year. Not a lot better, but when you throw in what the new coach can bring and where they are coaching wise, I think that makes just a tremendous difference. And I don't feel like this team is just going to lose their fervor to play football if it goes south a little bit.
I think the Saints are a better football team because of their coaching additions, not their free agents.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
Yeah. I don't think their free agents are what in terms of incomings and outgoings.
Yeah. I think Justin Reed makes a difference.
They didn't move the needle.
Yeah, Justin Reed
Reed's fine.
He makes a difference. However, I would have liked it better had they not lost Will Harris and cornerback. I'd feel way better about it. If I would do it, if I were to have my druthers and I would have not have signed Juwan Johnson, I would have taken the Juwan Johnson money. And maybe they didn't know they were going to have the Juwan Johnson money at the time. But I would have taken the Juwan Johnson money and given it to Paulson Adebo. I think that would have been a better move.
100%.
So.
I looked at the Saints. Understand the Justin Reed signing. Justin Reed is a good player. He's a veteran. He's a good guy to have in your locker room, local guy. Makes complete sense. I don't agree. I don't think they should be going after these kind of guys, but I don't think we need to rehash the whole what's next for the Saints debate. But the one move that made me truly just, because I had notifications on, the one move that made me just look at my phone and just say, what the hell are they doing, was Juwan Johnson. Yeah. I think he is a one-trick pony. And this is meant as no disrespect to him. He's a good football player. He's the pass catcher among their tight end group. He's not a good enough pass catcher to warrant $30 million. And the Saints are now going to be paying 3 tight ends who are all good at different things in a tight end heavy draft class.
Here's my question,
it just doesn't make sense to me.
And look, I'm not defending it because I just told you where I would rather have spent the money on Paul.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but this being said, if you're in that room, what's to say that you don't, Juwan Johnson might be a different kind of player under a Kellen Moore. I'm not saying he will or he won't. I'm just saying that maybe that's the philosophy. Maybe Kellen Moore says, I like Juwan Johnson and I think that he can be this or whatever, where he couldn't be that under Clint Kubiak. Because honestly, look, I don't say excited, but I had hopes for Clint Kubiak. But I think, and I've said this before, I'm not saying anything I didn't say before. After a few games in, I'm like, I think he, took all the tricks out of the bag and he was just kind of like, okay, I'm not really that impressed by Clint Kubiak anymore. I just think that maybe Kellen Moore thinks he can do more with a Juwan Johnson than a Clint Kubiak, or certainly Pete Carmichael did before that.
I just don't think that we've seen enough from Juwan Johnson over his career to warrant something like that. Let me ask you this. What's more valuable? Or what would you rather have? Would you rather have $10 million a year and lose a draft pick, probably a late round insignificant pick, to pick up a young promising tight end? Or would you rather have Juwan Johnson? And so what I'm referring to is the Raiders have said that they're shopping Michael Mayer.
Of course they are.
Who was a very highly touted tight end.
Yeah, but you can't have two stud tight ends. It doesn't work.
Exactly. So I would rather have Michael Mayer and give up maybe like a 6th round pick than pay Juwan Johnson $10 million a year.
I think
they wouldn't get much more. They wouldn't get much more for him.
Yeah, but how much does Michael Mayer cost?
Not much. I'll look up his contract.
I mean, yeah, he's still playing his rookie deal though.
He is. But he hasn't done enough to warrant a big extension. He's on a 4-year, $9.3 million deal.
That's his rookie deal. Yeah.
Yeah. His rookie deal.
How much does he have left? This is going to be his third year?
He's got 2 years left on his rookie deal.
Okay. I chuckle because my 9-year-old loves playing the "What Would You Rather" game. That's like one of her favorite things to do. Would you rather eat spaghetti on a anyway? The answer is I'm on your side with this one. I don't love the Juwan Johnson, and I know some people earlier in the chat were talking about, here's one right now, Chad Gage saying not a fan of Johnson at tight end now. He is signed. Could be used the big wideout we need. Or is he too slow and you're crazy? I actually think they're probably thinking of him right now as kind of the number 3 wide receiver. The problem is he's not Jimmy Graham, what Jimmy Graham used to be, which is what you think of there. He's not Jeremy Shockey. He's not that kind of player. I mean, maybe again, Kellen Moore might think he can get something out of Juwan Johnson that someone else didn't. I don't know.
Maybe. And if that's the case, then fair play. I just don't think. I mean, the tight end position. Listen, unless you're the
draft one anyway, that's the point.
If you're the cream of the crop, you deserve that kind of money. But Juwan Johnson has had 500-yard seasons, never had double-digit touchdowns. What is he doing to $1 million a year?
Yeah. Let's see. Juwan Johnson. Here he is, right here. Juwan Johnson of his career, 67 games. He has 146 catches for 1,622 yards. Now, he has been good in the red zone. He's got 18 touchdowns. He is going to be 29 years old when the season's second week. Yeah. His best season ever was last year, and that tells you a lot because I didn't think he had that good of a season. 50 catches for 548 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had one other season where he caught more than 400 yards. I mean, so no, he's not worth that money. But again,
no, and that's like I said, that's no slight on him. The tight end position is just so.
Maybe Adebo didn't want to come back. I mean,
it's
maybe
weird.
But I
maybe
wish
he
they
didn't. I mean, he got paid.
Yeah, but he got paid the same amount that Juwan Johnson got. Again, I would have much rather see them.
I think my biggest problem with Juwan Johnson is the Saints are investing so much money at the tight end position, and I know Taysom Hill's kind of a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, he doesn't count.
Let's call it for what it is. He's a tight end.
I'd put ATH next to his name. I don't think I would call him a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I would too. They don't really.
We don't even know what
designations.
He's gonna probably take a. You got to think he's gonna take a pay cut too, or he could potentially be.
But I mean, you've got essentially three guys at tight end who all do one thing well.
Yeah.
And you're paying a lot of money for that when you could really just invest with, be it a draft pick or another free agent signing, in someone who does multiple things well. I just don't think any of them do something well enough. I mean, Taysom Hill, once again, is the exception here. I don't think Chamorro or Juwan Johnson is good enough at doing what they do to just the money that they make.
Yeah, well,
I'll put it that way.
Two members of the Dattitude family are saying they want Mason Taylor. Charles Mangus get the tight end from LSU.
I don't think the Saints will take a tight end that high.
Yeah,
I think Mason Taylor is probably an early second-round pick.
Yeah,
he'll probably end off the board.
Here's my prediction. My prediction is O-line, D-line, running back. First round, second round, third round. That's my prediction.
Okay.
It's early. I can change it if I want. But that's where I think they're going to go. Final thoughts before we'll have you back on Wednesday.
Final thoughts. Your Will Wade take is atrocious.
Okay, go ahead.
Will Wade is awesome. And I would do anything to get him back at LSU. Doesn't matter. Will Wade's awesome.
I'd be willing to bet that the majority of people who think that way are probably around your age. And the majority.
What does age have to do with it, though?
Because it's cool to cheat.
He's not cheating, Jim.
Oh, come on.
He's not doing anything that other coaches aren't doing.
Yeah, that may be true. But that means he's dumb and at cheating. That means he doesn't even know how to cheat. He tells people he cheats. He gets caught on.
He's not cheating now.
How do you know?
It's in the NIL.
Where's the evidence? I hate the where's the evidence.
No, it's not. It's not. Where's the evidence? What was he accused of at LSU? How was he cheating?
You want to go down the list? He
got
caught on tape. He got caught on tape talking about paying players.
What is it now legal to do with NIL?
It wasn't legal then.
No, but what is it legal to do now? Pay players.
There are still laws and restrictions that you have to follow, even though NIL is a thing. I get it.
But who's to say he's going around?
He's got more money at
it's a baseless
NIL money at Ed McNeese. It's not a baseless claim. He's got a history of it. If he's got a history of it in the team, he's bringing a team from the dead back to 27-6.
He's done that 3 times.
Right. He's cheated.
He didn't cheat at VCU. He didn't cheat at VCU. There's no evidence of. Jim, we can't do this.
Evidence. There's no evidence. He just said he cheated at LSU, but he didn't cheat anywhere else.
Next year,
he only cheated at LSU.
Next year, when the Saints injure an opposing offensive player, I'm going to throw around Bountygate.
Okay. It's a different coaching
staff. Will Wade's at a different institution.
He's Will Wade. The person doesn't change.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't. No.
If a guy
cheats
on
his wife,
claim. If a guy cheats on his wife, if a guy cheats on his wife when he's 30, there's about a 98% chance he's going to cheat again. Just saying. If people out there listening,
let's add this caveat.
No, I'm telling the truth.
No. Let's add this caveat, Jim. If you want to make that comparison, is it really cheating if down the line he and his wife, who reconciled, are now in an open relationship?
If he was cheating on her before they had that open relationship, absolutely.
Yeah, but now it's an open relationship, so it's not cheating.
Well, first of all, if you're in an open relationship, you probably need to move on. That's just but that's a different story.
Well, I'm just looping in
life lessons with Jim Derry here.
NIL in an open relationship. This is why people tune into Dattitude, because you get NIL compared to being in an open relationship. I'll move on from Will Wade. I love Will Wade. I think he's a fantastic coach. But one thing I will say, with you saying this earlier, he doesn't deserve another year at LSU. I like Matt McMahon. He's a good dude.
He is a good dude.
Wanted him to succeed at LSU. It's not working.
No, it's not.
If you look at
I don't disagree.
If you look at recent programs, Florida, for example. Florida hired from San Francisco.
You're breaking up on me. You're breaking up on me, Gabe. Your internet is either in lag or something there. But go ahead.
Is it better?
Yeah, it's a little better now.
Okay. If you look at other programs, look at Florida, who hired Todd Golden the same time that LSU hired Matt McMahon. I get it. They took over two very different situations.
Yeah, Mike White left them in a great situation.
I mean, they had a worse record. They were 20-14 compared to LSU's 22-12. But
yeah, but I'm just saying overall, the program was
100%. LSU, and Matt McMahon did a good job, especially 2 years ago, of building on that. Other than South Carolina, no one in the SEC had a bigger jump in wins and losses. They went from 2-16 to 9-9 in conference play. But this year they were 3-15.
As I say, back to 3-15.
It's the regression this year that really makes me look at it and say this isn't working.
Yeah.
And then you look at another example, Michigan. Juwan Howard had that program in shambles. They were 8-24 last year. They turned it around. They won the Big Ten tournament 25-9 this year. Yeah, I just look at programs like that and who are now in the thick of the NCAA tournament, and I say, why can't this be LSU? I know it was going to be. I know it was going to be a big turnaround, and that's why Matt McMahon had the first 2 years to kind of just rebuild it, and he did a good job of that. But he hasn't followed up on that. He regressed back to the first season here, and that's just unacceptable to me. Yeah, I think that's why I think LSU should move on. I really, really think they made the wrong decision giving him another year.
Yeah, I look, I hear that's not a point I'm going to argue, because if they would have said goodbye, if they would have fired him, I wouldn't have really been that upset about it. I'm with you. I think he's when you regress, like it's one thing to regress, it's another thing to regress like LSU regress, because it really looked like last year. Okay, they took a big step. Okay, no one expected them to be this great team when they went.
I was perfectly happy with last year.
Correct, and so. You just want to go 9, because if you go 9-9 in the SEC this year, you're going to the tournament. I mean, even if you go 6 and
they're one of two teams that didn't make it.
Yeah, correct. So I mean, you didn't even have to. You could have still regressed and made the tournament. And so, look, this is just not acceptable going 3 and whatever at LSU.
No, and I know the SEC was tough this year, and I get that, and they've had injuries. But here's the thing, and this was the real kicker to me. Did you see how they ended the season?
Yeah, no, I did see how they ended the season.
They were not competitive. They were getting blown out. I think.
Yeah, Kentucky, but just 2 weeks ago, though, and I think this took the heart out of them. When 3 weeks ago, I guess, the Ole Miss game took a lot out of them.
Yeah.
Okay. When they blew that, and that's coaching. I mean, you blow an 11.
That was atrocious coaching down the stretch.
You blow an 11-point lead in the final 2 minutes. That's coaching. But then, not the next week. They had Florida on the ropes and should have won that game probably, which kind of was a wake-up call for Florida. Florida's been dominating ever since that game, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But they should have won that game too. And when you don't finish stuff off, now they did win a game in there in between, but you've got to be able to finish things off. And LSU was really close in the grand scheme of things, but close ain't, like to quote Jim Mora, close ain't shit. It just ain't. So look, I hear you with Matt McMahon, but I'm okay with one more year too.
But I don't think, and they've promised to. I don't think it'll get much better. It can't get much worse. They were confident it can't get worse. But I mean, if some of the recent results, I mean, they played Tennessee well too, but then Kentucky blew them out. I mean, I think Kentucky was up like. I don't even. They doubled them up at one point. It was like 70-35 or something, and then Mississippi State. It was just never competitive in the opening round.
That's what was disheartening. I wasn't. I don't remember what I was doing. Oh, Wednesday was when I got my truck, but I just was. I saw the score and I'm like, oh, whoa, yeah. And in fact, before it was over, I checked it. It was early in the second half. I'm like, well, no need to watch that game. So, but anyway,
I don't remember what I was doing. I had gotten back from something, and I looked down at my phone for the first time to see the score, and they were down like 26-20 with like 2 minutes to go in the half, and I was like, all right, let me get what I need to get done, and I'll sit down and flip it on. It was like 42-20 at halftime. I was like, what? They ended the half on
up.
and
they had their injuries,
and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'm not giving them a break for it, but I hear you. No. All right, we will talk more on Wednesday. Hopefully we won't have a 2 hour, and it's going to be 2 hour and 30 minute show today, but
that's okay.
We'll talk to you on Wednesday. It's good to be back here on the premiere.
Great to be back.
See you Wednesday.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Gabe Henderson. We didn't really get into the kick. I mean, you get where Gabe's coming from. Gabe, I mean, as we wrap up here this afternoon, Sean says that Debo had more guaranteed money on his deal. I mean, it's the same contract. Give him whatever. It wasn't that much different. They could have found a way to work it out. Just my opinion is, and I hear where you're coming from, Sean. I just think that they should have found a way. If you're talking about the difference between a Juwan Johnson and needs for this team, I mean, remember when defensive back was the strength of this team? It wasn't that long ago. It's now a weakness. It's changed in a hurry. And I just think that they would have been better off taking that money and figuring out a way to bring a Debo back in. Again, maybe they see something in Paulson and Debo or that I don't see, and that's the decision Kellen Moore wanted to make. I told you this already. Kellen Moore is going to have more input in this team. I'm not saying Dennis Allen didn't have input. Kellen Moore is going to have more input with this team than any of the Dennis Allen, or obviously Rizzi didn't have a lot of say-so because he was an interim coach and didn't have a chance to. But we're going to go back to more of the Sean Payton way. I know people will tell you that Sean Payton maybe didn't have as much say-so early in his career. I don't believe that. I think Sean Payton always had a lot of say-so. And I think it's going to be the same. I don't care that Kellen Moore's 36, 37, whatever he is. Kellen Moore's going to have a lot of say-so with this team. So, yeah, I think that's where we are right now. Larry Gibson said earlier he really wanted Evan Ingram, didn't pursue him. I mean, that's another guy. Why didn't you go after like an Evan Ingram and stuff? Maybe the guy you got in-house, they thought they were what and what. If you're going to pay him the same amount of money, go with the guy that's here already. I don't know that we're ever going to really know the answer to that. But again, going back to finishing off with the kick the can argument and whether the Saints have kicked the can or whether they're given hope. You know, Mike is really good at being politically correct, I guess, when he's on someone else's show. And although he'll tell you what he thinks, he's not just going to come out and openly say what he wants like Gabe will. That's one good thing about having someone younger who'll come on. I want that. But Mike, look, I know that you know, okay? Ain't nothing. I know that Mike Detillier thinks this team is kicking the can. I know that, and we didn't bring it up, and I'm surprised it didn't come up, that Mike Detillier and Gabe Henderson think this team is in football purgatory, and they're not getting out of it. I don't know what I define. I feel differently about this team today than I felt last year at this time. And in the grand scheme of things, they haven't done anything differently. Mickey Loomis hasn't done anything differently, which is not a good thing, obviously. Maybe I'm putting too much hope on Kellen Moore. I don't know. But I think this team was so poorly coached, they had no leader. Okay? They had no leader. I think Dennis Allen is a wonderful human being. I think he's probably a great defensive coach. Again, I hate putting everything on Dennis Allen. I just think the change, I think it makes that much of a difference. I want you to look at teams that are good. And other than the Eagles, I don't think Nick Sirianni is any good. Okay. I think he got lucky, but he had a lot of help. I think a big reason why Nick Sirianni won a championship is because of a guy like Kellen Moore. I'm saying it's the only reason. Maybe he's a better coach than I give him credit for. But look, I've been telling you for years, not months, years, multiple years, what I think about Dan Campbell. And even with the staff that he had, and it was a phenomenal coaching staff, I don't think Dan Campbell's that great of a coach. And I think with all the talent Detroit had, it showed up in the end, didn't it? It showed up in the end. The teams that win more often than not, they have the leadership. You have to have that leadership. No matter how good your talent is, or, I mean, a great coach can make average talent look really good. A lot of times, a subpar coach can make great talent look average. Terrence says he agrees that the Eagles had the best roster. I think they did. Larry says Adebo kind of turned into a Brandon Brown, or you're not really mad he left. That's going. Look, Larry, it's one thing to say you're okay with Adebo leaving. I get it. I hear you, but don't compare. Brandon Brown was the bum of bums. I'm going to have to play a clip in the offseason. Maybe I'll pull from the old Black and Gold Today show where Brandon Browner against the Carolina Panthers in the Dome lost the game all by himself by being a jackass and a bum. Don't get me started on Brandon Browner. Anyway, I'm just saying I am more confident on this Saints team as we close out the show today. And great to be back, by the way. I am pumped up to be back. Season 5 premiere. We're going to do more things in this season. We took a huge step last year from season 3 to season 4 with all the live show. We went straight live shows. In season 5, we're going to do more things on the side. We're going to get these shorts pumping out. I'm going to give you more off-show thoughts, I guess is the way to say. You'll be able to find me more, and not just in this long format. I'll also do short formats as well. Tell you what I think about certain things. I'm excited about season 5, but I'm excited that this team, it's hard to cover a team. It's hard to cover a team, period, over the course of 6, 7, 8 months, even when they're good. You know how hard it is to cover a team that is just terrible, that's god-awful, which is what the Saints became? I'm not blaming one player. I'm not even putting it all on Dennis Allen. I'm just saying we knew going into last year. I told you I thought it was a 7-10 team and that the floor was 5 wins. Go back and look at it. I said it. They hit the floor. Why did they hit the floor? Well, Ramczyk wasn't ready couldn't play. He's gone now. I told you if that happened and if Eric McCoy got hurt, that Derek Carr was eventually going to get killed, and we'd see either Spencer Rattler or Jay Kaner. And if you saw Jay Kaner or Spencer Rattler, it means you weren't going to win many games. Turns out they didn't win any games that those guys played. Will the same thing happen this year? I don't think so. I just feel differently about where this team is. And I'm not just telling you this to blow smoke. I've told you already. I hate the fact that there are other podcasts that just go with whatever the fan flow is. The fan flow from the past has always been to be uber positive going to us. Even last year, when it looked like they were going to turn things around a little bit and go into a season, these guys were like trying to get the fans to be uber. I told you, I thought they would be 7-10, where other people were saying 9-8, some even saying 10-7. I just think that this team is in a better position now than they've been since Sean Payton left. Is it a great position? No, I agree with Gabe in the fact that I don't think that they're a champion. I mean, I don't see them going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're that good. I mean, I'm not going to say 0.0. I just don't think that. But I think they're good enough to compete in this division that I think is going to. I agree with Mike that I think that Tampa Bay is still the best team in the division until they're proven wrong. They've won 4 in a row now. I think that Carolina is probably going to be a little bit better, but I thought they were going to be better last year. How many games did they win? They won, 5 or 6? 6? They finished just above the Saints. Atlanta. They're Atlanta. Atlanta had the best talent going into last year. What did they do? They screwed it up because they have a coach that I think is Dennis Allen part 2. Raheem Morris is no different than Dennis Allen, in my opinion. A retread that's not getting anything done. Now they're going to go into a season. I think Michael Penix is going to be a good quarterback. Will he be a good quarterback with this unit? Does he need a new coach? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think any of us know what's going to happen next year. It's a complete crapshoot, and I think the Saints are going to be part of that. And I give them a chance because I think their personnel is as good, and listen to me closely, is as good or a tiny bit better than it's been over the course of the last 5 years. The difference is Sean Payton was here 5 years ago. After Drew Brees left, they pulled the 9-8 out of their butts when they had Jameis Winston got hurt and they had 4 different quarterbacks and whatever. And then Dennis Allen took over and everything went south. I feel as good about this team as I felt since the day that Drew Brees walked out the building. Does that mean I'm a long way? I need to see what they do in the draft. I'm a long way away from making a prediction on how the season is going to go. I'm just telling you that I think it can be better than a lot of you think it can be. Anyway, that is going to wrap it up for us today. A reminder that if you want to get in on our bracket competition, it's for bragging rights only. The winner will be announced on the Dattitude podcast the day after, or the Wednesday after the championship game. Just join. It's on. Gabe has put together on ESPN bracket challenge. You can join our group. It's called Dattitude. It's easy to find. It's free. Join it. You can compete against Gabe and I. I have not done my bracket yet, but I will either tonight or tomorrow. Also, I want to start doing something on Wednesdays. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make it work for this Wednesday or not. There's a couple people I'm working on for this Wednesday, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. But I will say this. Maybe not starting this week, but in the very near future, I want to have way back Wednesday. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and get someone, either an old player or an old coach or a member of the media or someone who used to be a member of the media, someone that people from around the area know their name. Okay. So we're going to try to start doing that. If not this Wednesday, in the near future. Okay. So that's going to be on Wednesdays coming up. Again, I will surprise you with who the guest is this coming Wednesday, but it's just good to be back, right? It's good to be back. I'm glad to hear from most of our regulars, most of our family members. A lot of you were back here today. There were some people that weren't in the chat. We'll be looking for them and wondering where they are, and we'll hope to see them Wednesday. If not, we'll see you Friday because we're back to our regular. I don't see any interruptions in schedule coming up anytime in the near future. We're back Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays live at 11 a.m. Central Time. And you can subscribe on YouTube. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go in the live. But it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You'll also get updates on when we post new shorts. Again, I'm going to try to update those every day. But I want to thank Mike Detillier. I want to thank Gabe Henderson. And I want to thank you for coming back and being part of our Season 5 premiere. But that will wrap it up for us. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, and many more. You can find a replay of the show, as always, on NOLA.com/sports. My stuff on bet.NOLA.com. All of our Saints Insider stuff. There's a lot to go look at, by the way. If you haven't looked at NOLA.com/Saints in a little bit, check it out. You'll want to see it. So there you go. That'll have to tie you over to Wednesday. If you've missed any part of the show, you can go back and replay it by all those places that I mentioned. Again, if you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe to the Dattitude YouTube page. We will see you on Wednesday. Everyone, it's so good to be back. Take it easy, everybody.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.